Oh God, chat. We're almost there. We're almost to the end of the week. It's Thursday, baby. It's Thursday. Oh God damn it.
Making a mother of all omelets here, Jack. Can't spread over every egg.
How you doing, Ghost? Welcome back. Why did you make a new account? Why didn't you just sign into the old one and change the name? Okay. Babish posted a new video. He's trying every food and he's what? That was actually really good timing. That was actually kind of funny. Wait a second. Wait a second. I ate everything in New Orleans one day ago. All right. All right. We have that. It's also a 30-minute video, which is a very appropriately sized video. Good. Good. Impatient, doesn't wait a second. Listen, it's fine. It's fine. Hi, cool. Fish. Hi, Sunstar. My job is done. That's it. That's all you're doing. That's all you're doing today. That was the end. Are you sure, Ordain? Are you sure? You couldn't it? What do you mean you couldn't it? You could have just signed into Twitch on the new phone with the old accounts. And then just change the name if you wanted it to be different. How many seconds do you think I have left to spare? Some? Some? Probably? Gotta work up the appetite, 20 squats. You fucking bitch. Perfectly timed kerboom. God damn it. All right, hold on. Hold your horses. Wait, why is that thumbnail for that clip the intro thing? Why did you rewind so far back to the intro? Interesting. Fell into password recovery void, many such cases. Do you not keep track of the emails? What? I'm confused. A whetstone for his knife. Now he's sharpened it so much he can slice through the dimension. He can't slice through this one. This one's fucking mine. And if he does, I'll shoot him. All right, Sunstar, get the gun. Get the gun. Hi, Ember. Hold on, I gotta do 20 squats, which is why I'm like doing like this weird looking down thing. All right. Why do you do this to me? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. All right. Oh my goodness. I got the Garandon sawed-off shotgun. Ooh. I haven't done anything yet. Ooh. Well, you just said you did your job, so... Throws nuke at night? Oh my god. God, this is like just like a fucking Fallout 76 server in here. With the number of nukes that fucking Ordain throws. This would basically look like one of those like hacker guys in Fallout 76 that hacks it so that his minigun shoots mini nukes. And that is exactly what fighting Ordain is like. That is exactly what fighting Ordain is like. Nuke Dane's endless arsenal of kabooms. Correct. The emporium of... I was going to say implosions, but no, that's not quite the same. Belbibo, thank you for the follow. Welcome in. How are you doing? Why mini nukes? I use full-size ones. You're too small for that. Also, wait a second. I think I have a meme for that. Oh, wait. No, it's on my phone. Damn it.
Wait the fuck up, samurai. We have a city to burn.
Hi, Johnny. How are you doing, Johnny? Look at that handsome devil. Are the opposite of explosions? The opposite is a bold claim. It's more like instead of exploding, which is outward, it's imploding, pulling everything inward. It'd be like those like videos of train cars where they basically just hook a vacuum up to it and suck everything out of it until it crushes in on itself. That's an implosion. Joke's on you. Gold ship gets her pipe bombs from me? Bullshit. I don't believe you for a second. The quality is way too high. Wait a second. Wait a second. Oh, okay. This is what people were freaking out about. Character short Amon? Borderlands 4? I don't give a shit about Borderlands 4. I would have completely lost interest if I was any sort of a big fan for Borderlands after fucking... Oh, what was his name? The, what's the fucking shit stick that, like, always runs his mouth when a new Borderlands thing is coming out? Yes, Ocean Gate was an implosion. Implode, pack it up? What do you mean? Or Dane takes his pipe bomb seriously? No, this was definitely Gold Ship's handiwork. It was always for the bits. So she would make high quality shits for the bits. What was his name? Is the CEO or something? Randy fucking Pitchford. There you go. Thank you. I just needed somebody to say his name. Randy fucking Pitchford always runs his goddamn mouth. Is going to go the way of the Superman movies? What do you mean the way of the Superman movies? Do you mean like the overly gritty Justice League movies? Or do you mean like the new one where it's like a return to the original material where it's like much more lighthearted and fun and cutesy and hopeful? Rabbits in Colorado to grow black tentacles? Isn't that just SPV? Isn't that just rabbit SPV, if I remember correctly? That's not new. That's nothing new. People are just freaking out over nothing. Superman movies are cursed. Every fourth one is horrible. I'd have to see a chronological order of Superman movies. A return to fun? Yes, Hex, exactly. I've heard the new Superman movie is really good, and every picture or short video I see of it makes me like, yeah, this is Superman. This feels much more like Superman. Papillomavirus, yes, but in bunwee form? Okay, yeah. Yeah, so it's a PV virus. Papillomavirus. It's crazy looking, it is. But it's treatable. It's pretty easily treatable. If I remember correctly too, I think it's like, isn't it fluids or something building up off the like rabbit's eye that causes these like tentacle looking things? It's like a residue that just kind of piles up. Used to blow stuff up for fun when I was in Iraq. I don't like the insinuation of that. We're talking about the demon rabbits, poor little guys. So basically, yeah, but it's just a PV. Papillomavirus. It's not that unusual. People are going to lose their shit over it because they don't know shit. I keep seeing pictures of it. I saw them this morning and then yesterday morning too. And I'm like, I swear to God, I saw that in college. Swear to God, I saw a picture of this in college, or maybe years before college. But, I refuse to look at the pictures. It's fine. I can already grow tentacles. I don't need a virus. If you say so. It's freaky, so people are like, Armageddon, or like, it's another virus. Some crazy scientist somewhere has released a virus that's going to infect us all and turn us into monsters. Because I don't understand a single thing about the natural world. I thought the images were AI. The Varus. Wait, no, Varus is the archer guy from League of Legends. I like Varus. He's fun to poke people with. I like Varus. He's a gay thruple shoved into one body. It's great. I was just starting the article said it was only discovered last year, just very freaky looking. I'm pretty sure it wasn't discovered just last year. Could be, but I remember seeing it before that. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, it's happening.
Like 2016, 2017, I think I remember seeing pictures very similar. Maybe it was the deer version. Maybe it was the deer version that I'm thinking of. Turning into an eldritch abomination because I pet the bunny, I'd be okay with that. You know what? I think I would be too. But the only real eldritch horror that we have in reality is a nuclear bomb. Just think about it. Just think about that for a second. We have a casing that we're going to drop out of a plane. At some point, that casing is going to open, and for the 1/16th of a second that casing is open, it is going to turn into a what to call it? I was gonna say a blazing fireball, but fire doesn't exactly degrade how hot it is. Basically, just a sphere of eradication for but a split second before pushing everything near it just into the horizon. Like, I see nuclear bombs as eldritch horrors. Oh boy, human horrors of my comprehension? Fuck. It's the fucking sun? Yeah. It's the second sun. It's worse than the sun. Because, hold on, let me get the scale really quick. I want to get the proper scale. I need to get the scale for this. No, I don't want the Tsar Bomba. I want the kiloton yield of a modern nuclear warhead. Because, well, actually, you know what? The Tsar Bomba is a good example because the Tsar Bomba is the largest bomb that isn't a nuclear bomb. And it is more than twice. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. It is, Jesus Christ. Oh, God, it doesn't have a number here. I'm looking at a chart on the kiloton scale. It is Nagasaki, which was, I believe, the Little Boy bomb, right? Little Boy bomb was Nagasaki. Was 21 kilotons. Kilotons. The Tsar Bomba is 50 megatons. Was Little Boy? Hiroshima was Little Boy. Okay, so this is Fat Man. This was Fat Man. Thank you. We have the sun at home. The sun at home. No. Accelerates localized evolution mutation for centuries after. Yeah, that's Eldritch. I don't know about describing accelerates. Mutation, sure, but I don't know about accelerates exactly. Is too expensive to make into a bomb. Hi, Ember. Hi, Ember. Dropped a nuclear bomb in South Carolina. I said South Carolina yesterday, but I double checked it. It was actually Georgia. It was off the coast of Georgia. And it's still there. They never found it, which is kind of crazy, considering all the different measurement tools we have to kind of check these things. I don't know. Pleased to hear the music and bomb talk. Let's go. 100 megatons, but the crater had some nightmares about it, so it dropped down to 50 megatons. I want to know the yield. Modern nuke yields 100 kilotons. 100. So wait, no, was that kilotons or was that megatons? To over a megaton. Wait, that doesn't sound right. Hold on. Oh, okay. This is tactical nuclear weapons. Can range from below 1 kiloton to over 100 kilotons. Okay. So 100 kiloton bomb makes it twice as big as the Tsar Bomba. Nope, shut up. What the fuck? Oh, it's because I have TikTok open. Okay, that's what I'm looking at. I was like, what just started playing? I had TikTok open because I considered doing conspiracy things again. With the fake Tims. Not my fake Tims, dirty. Don't be mean about my fake Tims. I can't afford new glasses, okay? It was 1961. North Carolina, 62, 61. Okay, so I was thinking of two different situations then. Because when I looked up like Lost Nuke afterwards, I was like, I'm pretty sure it was South Carolina. But apparently there's also one off of Georgia. Hey guys, when are we gonna go get that Lost Nuke that we dropped decades ago? Just the CO. Do you have any idea how little that narrows it down? Look up Sedan crater, zoom out a bit and see all the craters. The maps. Mercury. No, I don't want Mercury. Oh. 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 Okay, chat, hold on. I'll show you all this. Give me a second. Let's do stream. All right. Hey, kids. Here's the Sedan crater. Here's where it put me whenever when I searched it. I hate it here. Bistro. Hey, yo. Oh, well then, yeah, it's just... Gun turrets. Ice cap. Historic landmark. Yeah. Could there possibly any antimatter? I don't think Gordon can conceptually understand antimatter, and he doesn't get to just say, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I know I totally understand antimatter, therefore I have antimatter bombs. No, Ordain. You do not have a force field for tag. It's not World War II. Japan tied fire bombs into balloons and let them float over to the US. It only took out some people camping in the forest in Washington and nobody else. Yeah, that sounds... I mean, we could talk about the bat bomb. Bat bomb! They put a bunch of bats to sleep in these pods and tied incendiary devices to them and then flew them over Japan. And because at the time, much of Japan's construction had like the over eaves and much of them were wooden, they just kind of released, the bats would wake up from the anesthetic they'd have roughly about the time they needed them to, and they'd release them and they'd go and fly into the roofs and then go boom and then burn the place down. It wasn't crazy good, but it got the job done in a country that was mostly wooden structures. So it wasn't something that became like a reused or like here they are with like individual cells, kind of, you can tell. Oh, here's one in a museum. Yeah. Hey, crazy. We came up with crazy weapons during World War II. Heinous, disgusting weapons. Disgusting. I still stand to this day, nuclear bombs should not exist. For us to decide to find what is essentially a massive inlet of renewable and easily accessible energy and decide, let's make it into a bomb instead and force the world into like silent geopolitical war. It's a hobby? No, the fuck it ain't. Oh, we could talk about cloud seeding too. I actually did a report on cloud seeding back in college. Wasn't it the Mongols who tried lit matches to rats and released them into the city? I wouldn't doubt it. That actually sounds like a hilarious strategy. Especially because the rat would probably try to run away from the fire. So it would try running like into close, tight crevices. But can we make it into a bomb? A fucking apparently. Chat, I have a question. Do you know the two R's of geopolitical, well, just geopolitics. We'll just go with geopolitics. Do you know the two R's? R and R, not rest and relaxation. There's two R's that comes down to geopolitics whenever you have an upset citizenry. What happens? What do you do with an upset citizenry? There are two R's. They both start with R. There's only one medieval woman who burnt down a city using pigeons, if I remember correctly. I wouldn't doubt it. New channel on YouTube by Willet Blends, or like the guy Willet Sausage, Ordinary Sausage. Robbery and ransack, you're close. Renocide, not typically. Although that does come as a of certain ones. It's reform, which hardly ever fucking happens, and revolution. When a unhappy citizenry has a government that refuses to reform, there is only one option. It's revolution time. It's time to burn it down and start over again. Can we turn it into a bomb? No, that's what we were saying is basically the like history of the fucking, what was it? 20th century? That's not how you spell guillotine, but okay. Yes, get the guillotine. It's time to be French again. Bring back the French tactics. Ordain killer bomb. Oh, that's just throwing Ordain out of a plane and seeing what he does where he lands. Be kind of funny. It'd be kind of funny. What? Who done did that? Who done did that? I don't care how you spell it. I want to see heads roll. I agree. I agree. Now we eat the government and become the power. I don't know about become the power. Maybe? Wait a second. God dang it, Emmy. God dang it, Emmy, you goofball. Oh, right. Oh, my. Oh, my. I just want to eat the government. Curious what money tastes like? Money's easier to taste. Billionaires, on the other hand, I bet they're like really fat and marbling. Delicious. Delicious. Humane form of execution, but the current admin, yeah, let's make it a public spectacle. I feel like it needs to be a public spectacle. Governments around the world have forgotten what a good revolution looks like. They've gotten complacent since World War II. Fat and marbly, can we turn it into a bomb? No. Well, y'all know that, isn't there a movie? It's not Dr. Lovegood, is it? I don't think it is. The guy that like rides the bomb. We just start tying people to bomb. No, I'd rather drop less bombs than give them 16 terrifying seconds of the last of their life before strange good love. That's what it is. Strange love. Thank you. Incredible things are happening 5,000 meters below the ocean floor. It's a fucking sea pig getting pushed by the current, just rolling across the ground. Precious. Precious. Niece and their partner to walk to the store because I didn't want to. All it took was a milkshake and snacks. Hey, listen, you can convince teenagers and kids to do a lot of things if you promise they get to get a snack once they're there. What's roundheads? Roundheads. Roundheads. Where's the trolley problem? Listen, you tell me that they're like, give me the trolley problem, but any one of them, and you tell me like one section of them are politicians. I'm pulling the switch on that side. I'm pulling the switch on that side. Can you turn the trolley problem into a bomb? Yes, you can. You can exactly do that. They do that all the time, but they always make the worst choice. Is it actually a problem? That's a good question. Have moral quandaries about the moral quandaries of the people that are currently tied to the tracks. They'll have to think about this. Once the front wheels go over, throw the switch, force the derailment. Could do that. Could do that. That's true. Oh, Coco's barking at something. Oh, good lord. Your Honor, at the time of the incident, my client was in goblin mode. Hold on. I gotta send something to Fang. Alright. What the hell is Nobody 2, and why does Discord keep recommending it to me? Nobody 2 only in theaters August 15th? Alright. The tree worship is ballads while singing Crazy Train. Oh, and standing on top of it and riding it like a surfboard. Who the fuck? Now listen, if I see that thing marked as completed, I'm gonna lose my shit. Mainly because I could probably go to my friends who made some of my other tattoos, but I don't think I would have enough time because she's usually booked out like 6 months in advance. So I probably wouldn't be able to get that tattoo here. Okay, I'm going to look and see who did those. I need to know. I need to know. Will it tell me in the order section? Oh wait, no. No, it won't. We're at 50% now. If I click the, if I click it, can I see it? Jesus Christ, you guys. That is halfway to a $2,000 goal. How are you this Thursday? I'm doing good, Widow. How are you doing? And I can't check who did it. If I find out this is Sobek, I swear to God. What's the song? This song? This song is Prophecy of Ragnarok by Brothers of Metal. Yeah, apparently I can't check it. Also, do we have any suggestions? Cookie shot. Oh, I think somebody did this before. Oh, right. These are the like weird like shot glasses made out of cookies. But they're what? Hold on. That's $37 for 3. 3. Oh no, sorry, half a dozen? Oh, and they're all sold out. I guess they stopped selling them because full dozen and half dozen are now marked as unavailable. Reject because it doesn't seem like they're available. They were too expensive for me to accept at the time, and I was like, that's ridiculous. Playing Stardew Valley and Roblox at the same time? That's insane. Why is everybody playing Roblox all of a sudden? And why do I keep seeing fucking Roblox ads? I don't get it. Gotta tighten the purse strings for a while. My dental work is called. Oh my God. What kind of dental work are you getting? Are you getting a whole new smile? What the fuck? Are you turning yourself into a shark? That feels like shark shenanigans. New jaw? Maybe new jaw. Steel jaw? Are you getting a steel jaw implant? Is that what this is? Sweet fuck, are you getting golden teeth? Yeah, $19,000 is insane for dental work. Cyberpunk for the teeth. You're getting that like whole implants where it like replaces your whole face. And you have the ad where you have to like take off a face panel and brush your teeth that way. Mostly crowns and partial dentures. You're getting ripped off, dude. Also, I'm pretty sure the Roblox developers have some cheese pizza on their PCs. Oh yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. Didn't they ban the like, what is it, the predator hunters? Which are like those guys that basically like hunt down predators in games and like try to expose them and stuff, which is fucking crazy. More is the game engine and trying to get more people to use their engine so they get a percentage. The thing is, they also allow people, even kids, to make like premium items for people to buy using their engine. But it's highly exploitative because they take, I think it's 50% of the money that they make. And then I think you also have to have like a premium subscription to get a payout from them. It's just, it is a little concerning, guys. I can't imagine who told him that the optics for that was going to be A-okay. Drawn about how they banned a guy who helped police. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. That was the predator hunters. You do the work, I make the profit. Yep. And goods, bads today, blacks, whites today. Wait, what? What is that from? Is that from something? You put quotations, so I imagine it's from something. Playing the game before they go back to school. Ugh. Or starting businesses early. Yeah, I've seen, if I remember correctly, I saw like a thing on a 12-year-old that was like not notorious, but like a really good creator And people liked his stuff, but fucking Roblox takes the majority of the money that he makes from it. Anything goes? Nope. Bomb the internet and rebuild it? The thing is, I don't think anybody in their right mind would rebuild the internet. I think any person in power or anything like that that would want to rebuild the internet would only rebuild it as a military application, like its original purpose. Continue working the employees at Roblox HQ are fucked. Tiny Stark, baby? What do you mean, Tiny Stark? Tony Stark? Do you think the billionaires are going to save us? Do you think the billionaires are going to come back and save us? They would rather let everybody remain ignorant and foolish in their tiny bubble wherever they live, rather than allow them full access to what is essentially the information hub of the world. At this point, there's probably a lot of people out there who are like, we made it. Thank you for self-care, by the way. There's probably tons of people out there who's like, the internet was a mistake. We need to go back to newspapers and magazines so that people can ignore it instead of it always being right in front of their face. Nuke the atmosphere and kill the internet and satellites? How about we don't nuke the atmosphere, you dingus? Are you insane? Did you hear yourself? Have you lost the goddamn plot? I will help you find it. I need the comic of Batman telling Superman, even if I had, what was it? I think it was like, even if I had 72 hours to write all the reasons that wouldn't work, I still wouldn't have enough time to write all of them. We nuke space that taught us why we don't nuke space? Yeah. I'd like to introduce you to low Earth orbit, still close enough to be completely affected by Earth's gravity. What did the atmosphere ever do to us? I don't know. Ask the ozone layer. Protect us from everything that like would try to harm us in this galactic hellhole. Like, actually, is a little bitch. The ozone layer is necessary. Why do you think fucking skin cancer became so prominent? Oh, good lord. Okay, no, we're not doing an Alamo video. Why is the Alamo here? Why is there an Alamo video on my fucking feed? That's weird. Oh. I hate that. Anyway, I don't want to look at that. I think it's so special. Oh, look at me. I'm O3. I have so many O's. Woo, I'm the ozone. It's necessary, Ember. Are you just mad because you're not a triple O cup? Is that what you're mad about? Is that what we're upset about here? Not big enough anymore? The layer where the ozone is shrinking, not from hairspray this time, but because their layer is expanding into it as it heats? Yeah. Yeah. Bye, Cannon! Remember the Alamosaurus? Chat, I have a question. What do you know about the Alamo? I want y'all to tell me what you know about the Alamo. What do you think the Alamo is? I'm mad because all my failing sparking electronics make ozone and I hate the smell of it. Oh, okay. So we're just petting. Nothing as usual. Good. I mean, you're English. That makes sense. Triple O cup could be bigger. Oh my God. Happened before Texas was a state. Yes. Yes. Just what the American education system told us? No. It depends. In Texas, it was different than everywhere else in the United States. I want you to tell me what you think the Battle of the Alamo was about. And has been salty ever since? And was drunk, thanks King in the Hell? No. A fort and then Ozzy pissed on it once? Triple O's, you say? Oh, God damn it, Cannon. I like the ozone. Lands? Lands? You'd like to think it was lands. I give you a hint. It was the same reason as the fucking Civil War. It was the same reason as the Civil War. Texas's economy, not native Texans. The native Texans was technically Santa Anna, who was part of the Mexican governments. They were the natives technically in this battle. The people fighting on the Alamo that they usually argue were like, oh yeah, these are the good guys, were in fact Americans who came and just moved into the land and started taking over and incorporated chattel slavery as a necessary part of their agriculture. And then when Mexico told them that they couldn't do that and they couldn't take over, they got pissed and threw a baby ass fit. And that was the Alamo. They also, if I remember correctly, they also didn't win at the Alamo, if I remember right. So a lot of the guys fighting at the Alamo were also immigrants. Like if you go to the Alamo and you see the plaques of the people that died there, there's like Irish last names. I think there's like a Chinese last name somewhere in there. Texas changes people. This wasn't Texas. This was just America at the time. Ban slavery years. Yes, correct. Very much so. The U.S. was more like... The U.S. was basically the last place. Well, in terms only. I was going to say the Dutch, but... Thanks, Leopold. Thanks, Leopold. Extra history? I don't think so. It doesn't sound familiar. Wear a shirt that says the U.S. never lost a war? You're full of shit, dude. Vietnam? Korea, kind of? Korea was more like a draw. Was the majority of Texas Apache territory? I could not tell you that. No, because I also know the West was Caddo territory. The Caddo people. Vietnam, Korea weren't declared as wars. They were just police actions, so they don't count. They don't get smile. Smile. Wait, we technically haven't declared war since World War II. So, like, those weren't actually wars, guys. Those totally weren't wars. And shivers down your spine. Shrieking skulls will shock your soul, seal your doom. Back-to-back World War champions. That's like showing... Okay, if this was a wrestling match, that's like showing up both times after all the fucking fighters have worn themselves out and are essentially collapsed on the floor and then standing on top of them and declaring yourself the winner. Yes, that's the point. That's the point. Is the skeleton complaining about the skeleton song? Then again, nobody formally declares wars these days. Pretty much. They just kind of do shit because they see themselves fucking above it. I was pooped. Good, you were pooped. Nobody wins a war. Politicians win a war. Not in the case that they're the ones that like do the work to win it. They're the ones who get the benefits from, quote, winning it. The wealthy, which is why America has gotten fucking drunk on it. Fucking America got a taste of war in World War I and then was forced back into it after being like, you know what? I don't think I like this. I think I'd rather just kind of be by myself. And then they basically just got poked with a dirty needle. Thanks, Pearl Harbor. And everything fucking switched. And America has been fucking addicted to it ever since. There has to be war. Their fucking economy can't work without war or an enemy. Who profits the most in the gold rush? The one selling the tools. The one selling the tools. What's better, to be a gold miner or to be the man selling them their shovels? Ever since then, they've been getting their ass kicked. It's not fully about getting their ass kicked. It was more about proxy wars and then, of course, eventually direct action because the U.S. can't keep its dirty little hands off fucking anything. To just kind of weed out the USSR. They did everything in their power to essentially constantly keep the USSR destabilized so that no matter how many like people or other countries wanted to join or work their way into a coalition, they were just like, they basically just poked them with a burning stick every time to guarantee that it didn't happen. They couldn't get the necessary resources of a rapidly industrializing country to stabilize. Pro-German sentiment that happened during World War I until the whole invasion and raising of Belgium and the Netherlands. Yeah. What else do you want me to say? I mean, we could also talk about the pre-World War II dispositions of the Mustache Man and how Americans viewed him. Again, America really liked eugenics before getting into the war. And it didn't really wind down until after the war, where America was like, oh, we can't be saying that shit. Oh, we can't be saying that shit. Especially considering Hitler's ideologies were based on American eugenics and the genocide that the American government conducted against Native Americans. Correct. Americans and Canadians, technically. Both Americans and Canadians. Because there was effectively a North American coalition of eugenicists. It's been fascist. It's been fascist. The nuclear family nonsense. Oh yeah, solidifying the American identity of the 1950s was a fucking nightmare. Chance, how many of you know what the United States motto is? How many of you know the United States motto? Yes, Umbilicus. E pluribus unum. AKA out of many one, which is basically referring generally to the states or everyone together as one country. Mine, you're pretty close. But no, I believe it was 1950. It was 53 or 54. I don't think it was the silent majority yet. It was the New Republicans, essentially, were the ones that came forward and were like, we need to solidify the American identity. America has to be the good Christian counterpart to the atheist USSR. And they basically pitched the idea of making In God We Trust the secondary motto. Same thing with it being added to the money. It wasn't added to the money until 56. McCarthyist counterpoint. Yes, correct. Exactly. They wanted to be the polar opposite of the USSR, and they needed to solidify that image into the basic American fold. Something good, just another piece to add to my... Also, didn't somebody do work it push-ups? Okay, let me do the 10 push-ups really quick. This looks expensive here. Let me relieve you of that resource for your own safety. Ugh. It was massive Eastern Orthodox. No, that's new. That's new. The USSR was allowed practice of religion, but it did not have a state religion. And they needed to interpret the USSR as a godless country so that the majority country Christians of the United States at the time would see them as an enemy, as opposed to fellow man, of course. Let me do these push-ups real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right. All right. Let me see here. You heard for atheistic rule and a living wage so I don't have to keep living with my brother. I completely agree. That's having a job when I lived up north that paid $22 an hour, where I could just wear my headphones and get the work done super easy. Again, it was 10 hours a day the days I did work, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed almost every fucking minute of it. And then I moved down here and places are like, we offer a very competitive wage of $13.50. And it's a job that requires so much more work than what I did at this other place. This was the muscle farm I'm talking about. That's what they want from you? Which part? To separate from the family unit at the age of 18 because of rugged individualism? Go out, buy your own home, break apart the family unit that we've been telling you is so very important for the last 60 fucking years. Liking working? You can enjoy work. You can have a job that you enjoy. Sitting, again, life will have work that you need to do in order to survive. That makes sense. But not in a capitalistic sense. Working at a gas station to survive is just cruel. Can I be out of the basement now? No, because you asked. Rigabob, thank you for the follow. Welcome in. Oh my goodness. Like people are always like, without a cash incentive or the incentive that capitalism gives, people wouldn't work. I want to fucking bets. Want to fucking bets? I promise you, it's not capitalism that keeps people working. It's finding something to do with your life will always get you doing something. Hold on a second. Okay. And reproduce, even if you can't afford it. Basically forcibly. We need labor. We need a labor force. Why is nobody having babies? Line has to go up. I do not wish to grind anymore. I want to frolic in the forest and take mushrooms and commune with forest spirits. I completely agree. I want to have a nice garden. I want to be able to go fishing. I want to trade with my neighbors if I have excess of any fruits, vegetables, or fish. And I want to live a happy life. I want to enjoy my days chatting with my friends, enjoying the fucking... I cannot believe we decided when basically the world globalized and the entire world became accessible generally, instead of it still being like discovered, and we created air flight and everything, that we weren't just like, you know what? Yeah, we're all gonna share now. There's plenty of resources on this planet that we can all grow and live together. Instead, we decided to fucking fight about it like a bunch of children. It's fucking pathetic. Population is decreasing. We have 8 billion people on the planet, my good sir. Are we overpopulated or are we underpopulated? Make up your fucking mind. We must destroy the servers? Oh, are you making a simulation joke? The wrong people lost the Cold War. I kind of agree. I think it would have been much more interesting to see what the world would have been like should the USSR have survived and been able to stabilize. If line doesn't go up, then people will realize the economy is a Ponzi scheme. Yep. Always got to be paying off those investors by having more people invest. We don't need more people. Stop it. I agree. We could have more people. It's perfectly possible to have more people, but I don't think we need it. I don't think it's necessary. I think I would be more, it'd be more understandable to see the human population plateau at some point. Magnus Mod, thank you for the follow. Welcome in. Granted, we could even talk about the fact that Peter Thiel, yeah, Mr. Billionaire, tech billionaire himself, that made fucking Vance vice president, actively believes that the human race should not exist anymore. He was asked in an interview if he thought the human race should continue to propagate. It was like a question on like, it was a whole discussion on like going to other planets and stuff, going and living on other planets. And he couldn't answer. He just kind of like wormed in his seat and was like, I don't really think, I think this man is planning on wiping out humanity. I think we have a supervillain. I think we have an actual supervillain who is trying to essentially push for total annihilation. Ever played Cyberpunk because we were following it pretty well, except for some parts? Yes. I played the shit out. Hold on, let me see. How many hours do I have in Cyberpunk? I have it downloaded right now. Just short of 300 hours. I also do know a lot of the lore from the books. All right, we have about 5 minutes to the ad break. Let me make sure I have a game ready for the ad break really quick. And then I'll check chat as soon as I have that. Okay. Yoink, yoink, yoink. Was always the plan. What matters is going down as the richest rich boys of the richest generations. Fuck that, dude. Fuck that. So hold on, I think my phone's crooked again. Okay. Okie dokie. Fuse to die before Peter Thiel does. I need to live long enough to piss on his grave. I agree. I completely agree. I'll do the same thing for Elon Musk's grave. Can't ensure you had the highest score forever if the machine still works. Genetic biobomb that eliminates human DNA only. Gee, how 40K of you, Mr. Billionaire? I think he's either... The thing is, that the way he said it makes me think that he has no value for human life. And he's a tech billionaire. So my thought is his plan, his like long-term plan is probably like total enslavement or something like that. It feels cartoonishly supervillain, but I don't see, at this point, I don't see billionaires above that. It feels like every single one of them have some sort of heinous ulterior plan. Because if not, there's no way you'd be evil enough to be a billionaire unless you were a terrible person. Are your arms made of smoke? Yeah. Let me see. What's the easiest way to show you? Oh, here. Let's get rid of the desk. Big chat. And then I can schmoove. They were actually supposed to have effects coming off of them. But apparently they weren't drawn right. And my rigger refused to do them. Or wanted to do some sort of like ulterior version that I just didn't like. The bird pussy is not human? I agree. How to become a billionaire? Stop caring about people? Pretty much. Pretty fucking much. Be willing to stomp anybody that gets in front of you. The chains are my favorite part, and they are both the artist and the rigger's least favorite part. They were a goddamn nightmare to get rigged and also for the 3D model to get done. So I think for the summer outfit, we're going to lose the chains, but I want to keep the cuffs. I want to keep the cuffs to some degree. Let me go back. All right. Become a billionaire, sell your soul. If only it was so simple to summon a demon and sell your soul and instantly become a billionaire. Also, yeah, I forgot in Cyberpunk. I literally just scrolled down and there's a recommended video on my feed of how the USSR survived in the Cyberpunk timeline. They are ants, billionaire Marin. I would hope I never get to that level of deranged and evil. That I see people as stepping stones. Listen, if I was a billionaire and every time I scrolled on social media and saw somebody that needed money, I'd be throwing money at that shit. Just almost every single one. And I'd probably spend a lot more time scrolling Kickstarters than I do. Had me finding a neat TTRPG, I'm like, yeah, I'll pay the whole thing. I cast $1 billion on you, but in pennies? All right, I'll get the truck. Cyberpunk lore videos are great and terrifying. I agree. I like listening to Cyberpunk lore. Because it's shockingly similar to how we function now, just without all the cool stuff. We got all the worst stuff and none of the cool stuff. I hate it. I hate it so much. She's more of a super bunker kind of gal. Super bunker. I'd probably have like an ocean base. I mean, I do something crazy like have an ocean base. Maniacally evil. From a game to me, I like it. A game. What game? Also, hi, Ultra Void. Welcome in. Someone summoned a demon with a sandwich. Oh, I could go for a sandwich right now. Mirrored goes Sealand. I do not want to go to Sealand. Is Sealand still just platforms? Is it still just like flat top platforms? Or have they finally built... Okay, no, they have tiny shacks on top of it, at least. The Principality of Sealand. Oh god, it has a helicopter landing pad on it. The micronation of Sealand. Crazy. Fucking insane. Weirdly enough, the fucking flag for Sealand looks like a diving flag. Except they've replaced one of the corners with black instead of both sides being red. All right. Let me move over here because ad break's about to start. Start. We got the dystopia part of Cyberpunk with none of the future. Correct. We don't get any of the cool cybernetics. We don't get any of the cool surgeries. None of those, what are they? Conversions. It's their own currency and passport. Bosco round solid in her marine base with all the folks she recruited. Listen. That all countries are essentially slave states to Russia, giving them everything and getting nothing. Republics of Soviet Union. USSR resource exchange. Because that's worded like American propaganda. Okay. Economy of Soviet Union. That's probably going to be useful. No, this is foreign trade. I don't think foreign trade is going to get me the info I'm looking for. Self-sufficiency. Wait. Other foreign economic activities included economic aid programs, which primarily benefited the lesser developed Council of Mutual Economic Assistance, countries like Cuba, Mongolia, and Vietnam. Bulk of its foreign economic activities with communist countries, particularly those of Eastern Europe. Soviet trade with socialist countries amounted to 62% of total Soviet foreign trade. I want more details. Can I get details on things that were traded? Specific resources? That's the 80s. Okay, let's see. Economy here. Later economy. Forms of property. Time frame. Oh, history windows. That's good. Let's go with the later ones. Okay, the era of stagnation was the 70s. Nixon shock. Oh, God. Oh, boy. Nixon shock. That's a phrase I haven't heard. Okay. Something. Holodommer? Domor? Hi, Sobek. Sobek, were you on throne? Were you fucking with my throne, Sobek? I see your ass. I see your ass. Today's feeling like a what to do kind of day. That's what I was saying. Oh, I dropped my chapstick and it hit the Windows key. Holodomor? What? What is that? I don't understand. What is that? Vast supplies of oil and gas. Okay. I want more specific. Okay, what is this? Oh, okay, this is the sector. Distribution of Soviet workforce by sector. Okay. Okay. But no, I wanted trade between trade unions? No, that's not what I'm looking for. Soviet Union exports. Maybe that'll help. Raw materials, fuels, machinery. Can I get more details than just those? Exports. Oh, good lord. That is 107 times export is used. Gold. Oil, gas again. Okay, hold on. Where is this most mentioned? Western industrialized countries. Traded in hard currencies. Meatballs. No, Ganon. No uppies. No uppies. All right, this is a side. This is a whole side thing that would take me forever to find, just because of how much shit is on here. Let me see. Early trades. Okay, trade of socialist countries. Countries bought machinery, equipment, industrial consumer goods, and political support without the expenditure of freely convertible foreign currency. Soviet aid programs, which took the form of direct loans or trade subsidies, almost exclusively involved socialist countries. Didn't Cuba have a nuclear reactor built by the Soviet Union? I'm pretty sure Cuba did. Cyberpunk lore? No, this is not cyberpunk lore. Arma, what are you crying about? What's the deal? Why are you crying? Did you want uppies too? None of y'all are getting uppies. No uppies. Here. I don't care how tall you think I am or how great the uppies are gonna be. You're not getting them. You're not getting the uppies. Not a chance. How's the crocodile god doing today? That's a good question. How is the crocodile god doing today? I thought they wanted to, but the US said hell no. I think we're thinking of the same thing. Because the United States would not support Cuba after its revolution, the USSR stepped in, and every step of the way, the US at that point was just basically big namby-pamby babies. So we're like, I'm being mean to this kid. If anybody helps him, I'm gonna be mean to you too. That was basically the gist of it. Let a reactor exist in Cuba. Reactors aren't that big of a deal. Okay, what are some of these other ones? Foreign policies. Okay, Yugoslavia. ComCon. What did you trade? Exported fuel, ferrous metals, plastics, and fertilizer to Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia's machine tool, power engineering, shipbuilding, and consumer goods industries supplied the Soviet Union with soft currency goods. In the 70s and 80s, Yugoslavia became more dependent on the Soviet oil as hostilities in the Persian Gulf cut off its supply of Iraqi oil. Gee, I wonder who did that. Okay, China. What did you trade with China? If they'd gotten their shit together, yep. I mean, again, it doesn't help whenever you're getting fucking snipped in the bud everything you try. It just depends. It always depends. I don't know the nuances of Yugoslavia because Yugoslavia in American history courses, US history basically is just kind of swept under the rug as no longer existing. They're like, oh yeah, Yugoslavia was a thing. It doesn't exist anymore. Like Czechoslovakia. It's only the Czech Republic now, and that's going to be on the test, and that's it. That's the only time we're going to mention the Czech. Scurries into the office, sets something on fire, scurries off again. Motherfucker. Do we got to break out my degree? You could if you wanted to. But hold on, I want to see what they say they traded with China during this period. Ideal trade partner with China, exports were not competitive on the world market, and its foreign currency reserves were severely depleted by record foreign trade deficits in 84 and 85. produced dated technology that was difficult to market in more industrially advanced countries, acquiring a growing hard currency debt. Eagerly pursued the Chinese market. Oh. Each country would sell the other goods could not market elsewhere, and each would conserve scarce hard currency for bartering. The Soviet Union possessed machinery, equipment, and technical know-how to help China develop its fuel and mineral resources and power, transportation, and metallurgical industries. China could offer a wealth of raw materials, textiles, and agriculture and industrial consumer goods. Between Soviets. Gorbachev. Okay. This was 88. The Soviet Union pulled its troops out of Afghanistan while Vietnam pulled its troops out of Cambodia. Wait, this is actually kind of interesting. The Peking restaurants in Moscow, specializing in Chinese cuisine, became the first joint venture between the Soviet Union and China. That's just a single sentence in the middle of this paragraph. For some reason. Is that restaurant still there? Hold on, I'm looking that up. Moscow Peking restaurant. Wait, was it renamed? No, this is Beijing. Okay, this is a Moscow restaurant in Beijing. I need Peking restaurant in Moscow. Hotel Peking, is that it? Peking Hotel? What's 39 and 55? That doesn't seem right. No, this isn't the same one. Well, maybe it is. It mentions down here that the Moscow restaurant is the polar opposite. Huh. Moscow, Idaho? No. Didn't the USSR only have like one cocktail bar? I don't think it was one, but the thing with the USSR's cocktail bars is it was essentially aspiring for the intelligentsia to scope out dissent and any potentially revolutionary groups that were trying to form. It may have just been one, but I do know that they were essentially just spirings. Because in most countries at the time, things like coffee bars and those kinds of like cafes and bars and stuff were essentially gathering places for the intelligentsia of most countries, as opposed to pubs. Because these were snazzy cocktail bars as opposed to pubs. Like as in Peking duck? Kind of, yes. That's the way it's spelled. But okay, hold on. Cambodia, Laos, North Korea. Looks like it was mostly direct aid and trade subsidies. Oh, and they traded machinery for Laotian ores and concentrated metals. In Cambodia, rubber. Ah. All right, that's enough of that. That's enough of that. Oh my God, I had 4 tabs of fucking Soviet history open. Jesus. Jesus. So Starbucks is a psyop? No, not modern ones, not like modern cafes, but in Soviet Russia at the time, it was basically a way to block and snide out dissent. History stream today. I mean, did it go on KGB spies in Australia or Austria? A pub that backed up against the Soviet embassy in Canberra? Who would go to a bar that's obviously connected to the Soviet embassy? That's hilarious. Comrade. Oh my God. I just realized I'm so signed into Hora's editor account. I need to swap back to mine. I just realized the bottom has, you're an editor. The T app, women's gossiping nightmare. What the fuck is the T app? Chat, what's the T app? Does anybody know what the T app is? Can't wait to have revolutionary talks in my local Starbucks. Don't avoid Starbucks. Go to a local cafe. I avoid Starbucks like the goddamn plague. All the leaked driver's licenses. What is it? Fuck that T app. It was actually used by Australian version of FBI CIA to spy on the Russians. Oh my god. Piece of salad Chipotle. Oh my god, so back. How could you? How could you? Post photos and reviews of bad boyfriends? Ugh. Ugh. Okay, I guess. But hear me out. Where do you find most Starbies in and around college campuses and you have left leading students there with the free internet that could easily be monitored? Liz, I ain't going to do work at fucking Starbucks and set red flags for guys. It was a Papa Meat video. I'm probably going to watch it later today when I'm free. Because I like watching the Papa Meat videos because they're funny. And I use them as background noise when I'm doing other shit. Oh, speak of the devil. Walk down the road and drink before watching the crickets? Oh my goodness. I couldn't tell you. Have I ever had a Starbucks drink? I've been to Starbucks, but I think I've only ever gotten food at Starbucks. I don't think I've ever gotten Starbucks coffee. Like when you uploaded your ID to verify yourself, it was uploading to a public photo bucket. What? That's fucking insane. What? What? Okay, let me guess. The whole app was coded by AI, wasn't it? Not baked goods? Well, no, it was probably like, I couldn't tell you the last time I had it. Probably. It's been over 5 years. I don't go to Starbucks. I love coffee. Coffee does not love me, so I very rarely have it. Hi, Ziggy. How are you doing? I love to reel in media share. Uh-oh. All right. Hold on. Oh. Hold on a quick second, chat. Chat, I have a question. I want to double check because this is about the merch stuff. Really quick, I just opened Discord and somebody has a question about the merch. Who has bought stuff from VT Horizon? Has anybody bought stuff from VT Horizon? Streamer, we have an answer. I hope you have an answer. Which is the VT Horizon link there for all our stuff. I have my opinion of it and I love it, but I haven't heard anybody else's, I don't think. I don't know if anybody's bought anything. Novel Horizon? No, they are not. They are not Novel Horizon. It's run by Biggles. Biggles makes this merch. I have the bottle. I use the bottle every day. And then I have the stone cup holder. Well, maybe cup holder. Cup holder is kind of the word. Plate. Like a plate that I put the bottle on so that I don't beat the shit out of my desk. Has anybody bought anything? Because I don't think anybody's told me if they did. I know some people have bought things, but I don't know off the top of my head who it was. Was Minerva's Kibby plush? Gotcha. I'd buy more, but expensive. The VT Horizon ones were expensive. Okay, hold on. I mean, they're better than the Uwu costs, which I've been meaning to talk to them about. I've been tempted to talk to Uwu and see if they would let me like completely cut my thank you for gifting a sub to Rob Zombie. What was it? Cutting my like percentage out is something that I've considered asking them so that like the price is cheaper because they are quite expensive. Wheel of Punishments. Oh man. All right, hold on. Yeah, the uwus are quite expensive. I bought 2 things from uwu. No, I have to do burpees. Fuck. Fuck. Thank you for the self-care, Pyro. Oh God, I hate that. Oh God, I hate that. Oh, how could you? You put another pair of glasses on it. That's just a... Okay, hold on. Hold on a second. All right. Okay, got invited to a part of a panel last SizeCon. You did? That's crazy. Was it for the mini one? This is my contribution to the stream today. Can't stick around, have fun. Wait, what'd you do? This is just saying hi, keyboard ASMR. Here, I'll bring it closer. No, I'm kidding. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I had to stay quiet. My brain was working overtime. Did Lucian say something else, or is it just this is my contribution? The one sentence. I am here. I stand here. T-posed. I made you do burpees, you motherfucker. All right. Okay, yeah, it does say I have to do, yeah, I have to do 10 fucking, oh, fuck. I have to do 10 burpees, okay. All right, SizeCon Micro, yeah, the online version. I'm gonna guess it was the tiny one. I'm gonna guess it was whatever the tiny panel was. I have never once seen or visited any of the SizeCon stuff, so I don't know what it's like. I'm pretty good. Hanging out. Ooh. I don't know if those pops were audible. All right. God, when was the last time I did burpees? Oh, I hate this. It's probably a bad idea to do it with headphones on, but mama ain't raised no bitch. Beats! Oh, come on. Was Bill there? Was Bill there? All right. I'm going to take the headphones off while I do the burpees. Give me a second. All right. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Jesus. 7, 8. Oh, Jesus. All right, well, my hair's fucked now. Thanks, kids. SizeCon is the convention. It's usually, there's like an in-person weekend one, and then one that's entirely virtual. Jesus. Oh, it didn't help that yesterday was chest day. Thank you for the 3 stream streak. You can't find literally anybody else. Call Impy? Oh, good Lord. Whew. Probably the last time you ate? What do you mean? Biggest memes was Channing Tatum saying something in a funny voice. And 10 years later, one of the biggest memes was also Channing Tatum saying something in a funny voice. Channing Tatum's funny. Giant women, that's part of it. It's basically every kind of size stuff that you can think of, including the weird shits. I think the, what was it? Jesus. The like SizeCon Mini or whatever it is was like this weekend or next weekend. And I remember looking at the schedule, and I mean a lot of stuff. So, of course, big ladies, big men, small ladies, small men. The Shrinking and Growing itself, it had its own panels. Expansion Inflation had its own panels. I remember seeing specifically Blueberry Inflation had its own panel. Feeding and Fat had its own panels. If I remember right, I'm pretty sure they did. Because those apparently count as size content, but sure. Channing Tatum's in the new Demon Slayer movie dub now. He's what? But Nima, thank you for the follow. Welcome in. What is his name? Sithis, am I listening to? Don't worry about it, Fake. We're not going to talk about it. I don't know anything else other than being like, what's on the schedule? Because my friend Gaz, I think this is her second or third year being on a panel. Decide to conventions they never knew about. The mini ones is always online, but they used to do an in-person one. Yeah, I know Gaz. Gaz occasionally swings through here, on occasion. Very rare occasion. Yes, Vor does have a section. Mistake someone for Faye? I'm pretty sure, I think Gaz has VIP here. I don't remember for sure. Let me look up real quick. Let me see if I can find the schedule. Oh God, there's an app? I can't find schedule schedule. Oh, good Lord. Okay. Floor tour, vendor hall, newbie social, size language 101, dark side, consent and non-consent panel, Vor social, conflation social, dark side, consent, non-consent social, movie riff, the amazing colossal man, Spanish speaking social, sizey songs and macro music videos. Okay, I guess they're just gonna watch a bunch of music videos that happens to have giant women in it or something. VR panel, kaiju panel, kaiju social. I'm guessing the kaiju is probably gonna be what Gaz is doing. Size shifter social, rider social, clowns. Wait, what? Clown social? Clown social? For those who like to clown around while keeping it sizey, honk. Why are we here? Why are we here? Just to suffer? Ace social. Oh God. Male breast expansion social. Giant men, tiny lady social. Weight gain social. Tall tails social, which is the furry one. Size fiction live readings on the main stage? I don't like that. Gender and size panel. Making macro art, growing your abilities. Unaware panel. Wow, that's a really specific one. Inflation/expansion panel. Video game developers panel. Expansion/inflation socials. Unaware social. Video game dev social. SizeCon radio play? Radio play? In the style of an old-fashioned radio show. Ah, here it is. Feet panel. Uh-oh. Payment processors, collective shout, and not safe for work games with Anna Valens. I have no idea who that is. Extreme size social, feet social, content creator social, dark side violence panel, Gardic phone RPG. Wait. SizeCon RPG stream, content warning, pregnancy, vor, anthro, transformation, feet, inflation, giantess, shrinking, weight gain, BDSM, denigration. And this is for a live play TTRPG that's only going to be an hour and a half? Okay. Fluffy feels social. Okay. BE game show? Uh-oh. Join our VTuber crew for our BE game show. The Hypester will be your host and will be joined by special guests to be announced. They will compete on a Price is Right style contest to see who can get bigger. Doesn't that just mean whoever has their model rigged bigger wins? BIPOC social, Giantess Tiny Men social, Size History social, Micro social, Breast Expansion social, Giant Man Tiny Man social, MLM, WLLW, Trans Size social, hashtag I am writing kink, grow your own way, Blueberry social, relationships panel, making macro art perspective primer, psychology of size, and then closing ceremony and a bunch of other stuff. Oh, wait. Main stage, the big fat game show. How much do you know about weight gain and fat in pop culture? I regret this. I regret going through the schedule. I regret this immensely. If I click this, will it show me the guest? Oh, hey, Gas is literally number one. Gas is literally the first talent on the talent section. Salazia's on here. Tay's on here. Tailblazer's in here. Moose is on here. Wow, it's weird seeing a lot of old artists that I recognized from back when I was hey, Burger Kurger! Hey, I know Burger Kurger. And all anchors away? Damn. Okay. Tech director. Somebody just marked as the producer. And then Yurinoichi is one of the production studios that's here, which is the community groups. Yeah, Yurinoichi is a kind of a VTuber slash artsy. Oh, sorry, I put the wrong ER. I have to lie harder. I don't put my real birthdays into sites. Yeah, Yurinoichi does a bunch of size merch. And I know Gaz is in here somewhere. We were looking at this the other day because they apparently make very unique merch things. And somebody was looking for a very special kind of mouse pad that they wanted. That I have that knowledge now. I think I would rather be gunned down in a back alley right now. Also, is that Milla falling asleep in her boobs? That's hilarious. That's a good emote. That is a good emote. I like that emote. Emotes not having the proper space in the on-screen chat. All the eyes are connected. Yeah. I kind of like it that way, though. I like it when the emotes like all touch instead of having the little spacing. It looks a little goofier there with just all of the stares of Aki. To next year's convention? I didn't come to this year's. I didn't go to the year before. Didn't go to the year before. Didn't go to the year before. I don't care. I don't care at the I know most of the artists that were there. They all look familiar to me because of how close I was in the community. But the thing is I am not like the people that go to these conventions. I am not nearly that gung-ho, not nearly that pervasive in my life that I would want to warrant going to a convention that is essentially like publicly showing your kinks to the world. How does one even find these conventions? It was mainly because it started in like the 2010s somewhere when I was still roughly a teenager. And the artists I followed on DeviantArt, every time it comes around, they'll usually make art for it. That'll become like a poster or like a promo thing. That was how I knew about it. After starting VTubing, I knew it was still going only because Gaz posts pictures. Because she does like Attack of the 50-Foot Talent poster that she's been using forever. With Marin and closed doors. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. I am not a sexual person. Perfect step to say you like what you like and I'm alleged to do you, but this isn't for me. Exactly. And I haven't lived in like spaces where I've been comfortable having like talks on these things. Especially considering a lot of people that do the like kink talk, like Vil does that on occasion. They don't really. They do it later in the day, and I can't do shit like that later in the day because the house is full. There's a bunch of people here then. But no, it's not like, again, I'm not a sexual person, even behind closed doors. I like to venture. I like to play with things. I like to learn stuff. I like BDSM, but not in a way of like, oh, what's the word? I don't expect intercourse. I don't give a shit about intercourse. Like, at all. At fucking all. Helps a lot of people comfy around their own kinks. Sure, that makes sense. I mean, he talks with a lot of people on a lot of different topics. And that makes sense. There's no shame in having your own kinks. And this is like I was gonna say, yeah, exactly. The thing is, I keep mine mostly private to the point where I only let it out on occasion when I end up with like art that pertains to it. Which is why you see like the art that I post or like the character that I play. But it's not at like an overt, well, I suppose to some people who draw it and stuff, they do tend to draw it in a very, very horny manner. But I'm not posting it to have people get off to it. I'm posting it to be like, look at the art somebody made me. I like it. But I also can't expect every person to want to be as like private about their stuff as me. Although I do still get very concerned with like public furries. Especially whenever they start like multi-layering on fetishes with being furry. That's when it starts getting really weird. Scurries in the office, finds a pillow, lays on it. Is that a throw pillow? No, not at all, Impy. Not at all. No, you were totally fine. I was gonna say, I was more thinking of the stuff like Claude makes, where he definitely like makes them like really, really kind of horny, if that makes sense. Which I like it. I think it's good art. But I'm not trying to do it like a lot of other people have, where they like their theme, or like their kink becomes their theme, their VTuber theme. I can think of 2 bimbo VTubers off the top of my head, and that's their thing. They're great at it. They like doing these things. I know multiple kaiju that specifically, I know multiple kaiju, of course, but I also know multiple kaiju that their thing, that is their kink. The size part is the point. I know so many fucking vor VTubers that their whole thing is vor and that's all they have. Ooh, webcam just fell off my, monitor, scared the shit out of me. Hold on, I'm trying to get it so that it doesn't fall again. All right. Being furry in public and being your fetishes in public in a fursuit. If you're walking around in full fursuit, to my mind, that feels like you're doing full fetish wear. You can be a furry in public, that's totally fine. But putting on the whole fursuit and going out in public is excessive. And I've seen that multiple times. Again, it's usually in like nerd sphere stuff. So it was mostly at like card shops, LGSs. Like there was one there was actually a Warhammer. This was a Warhammer shop. So there was a Warhammer shop that I was trying to like learn about. This is just before COVID hit off. And I wanted to learn about Warhammer, how much it cost, what kind of like options there were for getting kits and everything. And my favorite Filipino barbecue place was like 2 doors down. And I go to the Filipino barbecue place. I'm waiting for my order. And a dude walks in wearing a purple and like cyan wolf fursuit. The whole thing. In moderation, never go full kink. I agree. Listen, probably the closest thing I would ever do to having kink anything in public would be if I got really good at shibari and wanted to turn it into part of my fashion. And I would not make that like sexual in any way. I'd be using ropes and stuff to basically make like really cool designs that would like accentuate body or the clothes or things like that. Like that's probably the only way. Like shibari is fashion as opposed to shibari is kink. Is basically the goal. I would like to have time to learn that at some point. That would be fun. That would be very fun. Though even if it's full suit in public, that's a real strange claim. No, I don't know. That's just the way it feels to me. It feels extremely unusual and a little uncomfortable in public. Yeah. I'll probably also get a book on it. I'm very much, the weird thing is, Faye, is I have a problem with being taught things by friends. And I've mentioned this, I think I've mentioned this before. I get awkward. It feels wrong. So a lot of the times I like to begin learning things like on my own. It's kind of weird. I don't know why. It's like when I went snowboarding for the first time. The last thing I wanted to do was go snowboarding in front of my family or my friends. I instead wanted to go snowboarding a bunch by myself so that I could learn it decently enough. And why I was so gung-ho about going scuba diving. I walked into a scuba diving class where we're all strangers and I'm totally fine and I'm not nervous about embarrassing myself in front of friends and family. Yeah, no, we'll absolutely talk about it at some point. I'm gonna end up getting one of those like goofy ass like coat hangers, not coat hangers. Oh, I forget what to call them. We'll call it horse tackle. We'll call it like a horse tackle rack that you just hang ropes and shit on. To smash out the people she does things with? Huh? Smash out? Smash out? What do you mean smash out? I'm confused. Sensor, do you not consider dressing up as an animal and wandering around in public in your everyday life at least some form of kink? Some fetish? Like show up because you're so good at it? Sunstar, do you have a fursuit? Sunstar? Do you have a fursuit? No? You don't? If I open Twitter and go look at your profile picture, what is the profile picture? Sunstar. Think it's Twitter? Yeah, that is a bi flag colored fox. Granted, that looks like a 3D model that's just T-posing. I don't have good takes, man. Sunstar. Sunstar. Oddly unintentional, really? It's both your banner and your profile picture. Not doing something well? I'm trying? Yeah, it's the same way. It's the same thing. I pick up a dirk called the Diggler? The dirk is the Diggler? What the fuck? Oh my god, what the fuck is that sus emote? Are we outing our kinks now? No, beef, no. No. It's all I have. It's fine. It's fine. Probably. Probably. Okay. Scatter. What do you mean, scatter? Get your ass back here. Get your ass back here. No, it's just like, I can understand if you're going to a furry convention, or you're having like a private meeting with a bunch of other furries. Like, that makes sense. Like, I mean, people that do BDSM have munches. And then there's clubs and stuff that you can go do that stuff at. That makes sense. What is it? It's exhibitionism, right? Is what I'm thinking of, where you basically like show off your kinks to the world and you kind of get off to doing that. You can't catch me, Ganon. You're too small to run from me. You know that. Would you class cosplay the same? Depends on the general costume, I think. Again, like those, again, furry conventions, any kind of clubs, any kind of meetups and stuff, where you're like doing that with other people who have essentially signed the non-verbal contract of this is what we're doing and we understand this is what it's going to be like, as opposed to forcing this on everybody in public. Exhibition con would be nuts. I know there's BDSM conventions. I know those exist, where people also show off like all the cool equipment and stuff they make. If anybody's ever seen like videos on the internet showing off like vacuum beds and stuff, where it's like latex vacuum beds and people get suspended in them, those are usually at conventions. If I'm so short, hold me? No, I'll throw you like a football instead. I'll throw you like a football instead. How'd you like that? How'd you like them apples? All right. Okay. Wait. Oh, good lord. All right. Be punted like a football. Sorry, boss, I'm late. I've had to let a horde of dominatrixes cross the road. Listen. That's a little less weird than hucking into the sun since I'm already melting from it. No, I don't think my throwing arm's that good. Bleeds out playful scamp, isn't he? Oh, good lord. A vacuum bed? I don't think I could pull that up on Twitch, but I recommend just search BDSM vacuum bed. You'll find it. You'll find it. I promise. But no, I wouldn't doubt if exhibitionism was also part of a lot of people's BDSM venture, if you will. Because I know some clubs do that. And there's some people that like to get up on stage and demonstrate things that they're into it. Usually it's the bottom in the situation that tends to be the exhibitionist that enjoys it. I get way too much stage fright to ever consider doing that. I would love to go to a club and see the stuff that they do, but you'll never catch me on stage. You'll never catch me on stage. The Dungeon Hotel? Dungeon Hotel? Dungeon Hotel? What do you... Manga decks? What do you mean, welcome to the Dungeon Hotel manga decks? There's a manga called Welcome to the Dungeon Hotel? Where are those sex clubs VTubers talk about? I know a few of them. Where they basically just, they less turn into like physical type stuff. It more turns into like VR weird stuff. Because Marin's too fast? No, you fucking goofball. Nowadays, they're just full sentences. That's true. That is true. Although a title being welcome to something isn't that bad of a title, honestly. All right, chat. Would you like some more wholesome topics? Would you like some more wholesome topics? Do we want to go to the New Orleans one? Also, hold on. I need to change the thing because the tab I had open was still stuck as the editor again. I mean, you're going to tell me Welcome to the Black Parade is a bad title? Don't lie to me. Don't lie to me. You better not be lying.
New Orleans.
In Final Fantasy XIV, I've seen some of those, and I don't like it. A manga right next to me called Precarious Women Executive Miss Black General. That is a plethora of words. Yeah, that is a plethora of words slammed together to, I guess, make a title. Yeah, that is a word salad. That is a bunch of word salad just everywhere. All right, kids. New Orleans time. New Orleans time. I assume we want to do New Orleans instead of like Philip Zeba or Shane. Would we rather do conspiracies or would we rather just enjoy some New Orleans? I could find a longer one because I have a lot of manga. You do not need to go get longer word salad names. Is peak and hilarious? I'm sure it is. Because the titles hardly convey the entire story of an anime or a manga. Food. Now I'm tempted. Uh-oh. All right, anybody else? Is Stevie the only one that's gonna voice an opinion? Chats, you gotta be ready to voice an opinion. I need your input here. Otherwise, we're never gonna get partner. We're never gonna get partnered this way, guys, if you don't voice what you want. And then there's Sunstar. We got aboard Marin's magical boat for the field trip. Magical boat time. Might as well New Orleans. I mean, I have the others. I have these two shitholes, and he has been putting out shit like mad. These are all new since we checked last week. I'm still waiting to see ones that I recognize. This was made in the Dark Ages. No electricity or power tools. How did they do it? Artisans and centuries. Artisans and centuries. Anyway. Boy, I forgot I had Twitter open. I'm glad there wasn't anything there. I want to fill the holes in our hearts with gardens. That's what I want. You want a what? Yeah, the one with the tinfoil helmet. Yeah, with the weird pyramid-shaped tinfoil hats. Ah, yes, the southern ends of the Grand Canyon is on fire. Don't forget that, chance. Anyway, we may go to that later today. I don't know, though. I don't know just yet. Let me go ahead and...
New Orleans, home of jazz, ghosts, Mardi Gras beads,
The
and most
Big
importantly,
Easy.
my favorite food in the whole world. You might even
You're
say the city
goddamn
is a
fucking
gumbo
right it
of
is.
cultures, traditions, and flavors all simmered together over centuries into something uniquely American. Here, French, African, Spanish, and Caribbean influences collide in a way that somehow makes perfect, delicious sense. The food
Fucking
is soulful,
food in
messy,
Louisiana
comforting,
chat
and
is
alive.
downright
so
mad.
buckle up your ass,
Horseradish.
because today we're eating the best of it on the ultimate
That was a
New
lot of
Orleans food
horseradish for
crawl.
one oyster.
First up, Damalises, an essential po'
Hit the
boy
po' boy
joint that's
bar,
been
baby.
open since 1923. So if we want to get a prototypical po' boy, this here's the place to do it.
A neighborhood institution over 100 years old, and I love that the only two people working in the kitchen are these
Good
two
size rank.
wonderful septuagenarian ladies, just soloing the lunch rush.
Septuagenarian ladies?
Just
Oh,
like,
no.
I mean, it doesn't get much more New Orleans than that.
Oh, they even have onions?
All right, so the most
It's not
popular
often you end
po'
up with
boy
onions on
is
a
the
po'
fried
boy.
shrimp po' boy, fully dressed, which looks like
Ooh,
it's
those are
mayo,
big shrimp.
hot sauce, maybe ketchup, pickles, lettuce, all of the good things in life.
You're goddamn
The
right,
bread
dude.
really does make a difference. Like, you
the
think
Food
it's
Network
not
show,
going to
I
be
don't
very good.
hate
If
it.
you try po' boy bread on its own,
It's
like,
sometimes a little bit
But then
better
in the
than some
sandwich
of his
form,
other
it's
stuff.
Like, wow, this makes sense. And the shrimp is nice and crispy.
That is-
It's
that
well
is
cooked, so it's
good-looking
not
shrimp.
like bouncy or slippery or anything. It's like just right.
It's a little too
There's
close to
reason
border
this
for my
place been
comfort.
open for over 100 years.
New Orleans
10.
is
I
not
wouldn't
a
do
bad
anything
city to live in
10.
if you
It's
have money.
perfect. It's amazing.
The thing
All right, we
is,
wanted to
Louisiana
do
is
the
in the
most popular
bottom
menu
of
item
U.S.
and
states.
the wildest menu item. That's what we have here. This is a cheeseburger po' boy. And then they also put this
Okay,
mystery
I've seen those
sauce on it,
before.
which I'm going to lick to
I've
try
never
first,
had
to see
them
what the
just
sauce
because
is all
anytime
about.
I hear po' boy, I'm like, I'm in seafood,
Kinda
dude.
tastes like
Seafood
chili.
or bust.
You know, just kind of tastes like a basic spiced chili.
Okay,
I don't like
if
it as
you
much
say
as the shrimp po'
so.
boy, but like,
Thank
far
you
as
for the
burger goes,
follow.
from a lunch cafe like this.
Looks
great.
dense.
You know,
It's a
it's
pretty
like a diner
decent
burger,
patty,
but
and it
it's on
looks like
po'
they're
boy
using like an
bread,
au
which
jus-based
I
gravy.
think adds to the conversation. I'm gonna give it an 8. Like, I really enjoy it. I'd house this whole thing, but if I had a choice, I'd pick the
Shrimp po' boy, baby. There's
Still very
just
good.
something special
All
about
right, folks, next
seafood
up
po'
is
boy.
Coop's Place,
Coop's.
New Orleans institution since
I've walked past
1983 to
Coop's
make
before.
it taste homemade every time. At least that's what the website says. This is actually one of my favorite places.
I
to get
remember
red
a lot
beans
of
and
these
rice
signs,
it's
'cause I
pretty
thought the
much a
signs
dive
were so
bar
cute
and
and
a
cool.
restaurant. So let's go eat there. There we are.
Hardtack.
This is the Jambalaya Supreme. We got shrimp,
Supreme.
shredded rabbit, pork sausage.
Rabbits.
And it looks like they put some crawfish in there. Let's get a
Hell
little
yeah,
bit of
dude.
everything. Even though
Also,
they're
I
making
just
these
love
huge
the
batches,
old
it's hanging out
colonial
for a little
French
bit.
architecture
The
of
shrimp
New
is
Orleans.
perfectly cooked, like it's not slippery or rubbery.
Again, chat,
Coop's
if you've
Place is
ever
also
wanted to
cool
go to
because
a
it's
very
not often you
historical
go to a
area
bar
that you can
divey and get
basically
shrimp.
walk all
You get a
over
bunch of
almost
seafood.
every
But the only
historical
problem I
area.
have with this is that the rice is
New
like
Orleans. Go to New
crazy
Orleans.
overcooked because it's probably been hanging out for a long time. But
I
wouldn't
think
care.
my like
Give it a
entire
9.
trip to get
Beautiful.
to New Orleans.
Next up, red beans and rice. We got some fried chicken in there. That's unexpected. One of my favorites is super
Oh,
simple,
we had
beautiful
French
food
fries on top
stuff.
of the red beans and rice. Oh, this is a
it's
bougie
so
place.
perfect. It's like
a
free
little too
things.
bougie.
It's just so f***ing perfect. The chicken is really soggy on the bottom from all the gravy.
all the
but
bean
that's
juices.
Good. It's soaking up the gravy.
All the
God,
bean
that's good.
juices.
I mean, this is the highest compliment because I feel like this is what you want the best Cajun food to be.
I like that he's
dirty.
across the street
It's
from
dirty.
oh, hold on a
No,
second.
it's
Wait, go
Cajun
back.
food to be. It's dirty.
Okay, chat. Do you see this sign over the left side of his head hanging from the awning? That's a for lease sign because there's probably an apartment in this building here. When I went to New Orleans, there was one of these signs under an old wooden awning, and underneath it was hanging one of those extra additional plates that usually tells you like it has a pool, it has a hot tub, or like what its extra thing was. This one was haunted. It had a black and white plaque underneath it that marked it as haunted. And I wish I still had the picture of it, but it was on the phone that went into the fucking river, and I'm still upset about it. I'm upset I don't have this picture anymore to show you. Remember when I first had gumbo? I
It's
agree.
dirty.
I agree.
No, it's 10. It's perfect. It's perfect. Way to go, Coops.
I was gonna say fried
Muses
chicken and
by
red
the
beans and
track,
rice.
or
There's
so we
not
thought.
much that gets
Not gonna lie,
better.
that was closed.
It do.
And
The
it
uses.
was. We'd have to pivot and pivot fast. Thankfully, in the muggy heat of the moment, I had a wonderfully terrible idea.
You know what?
Terrible?
What?
I say, we go get shams, okay? Where one door closes, another one swings wide open, and we stumble
Bourbon Street. So he's already, I believe, a block into Bourbon Street, because I think behind him is a Crystals, like the old, like basically White Castle but Southern. This is actually a pretty good view because we only have 20 seconds until the ad break, so we're gonna do the ad break. It was suddenly really loud in my ears. Okay, and I will get y'all Gardic. Sell me on a place. Yeah, it's a good location. It's how haunted sold. Yeah, I was like, how much does that knock off the price? $700 a month for an old French apartment? Sold, dude. Fucking sold. All right, chat. I'll be back in a couple minutes. I'm going to give you the game. And I will see you shortly. We can get back to checking out Bourbon Street. All right. Chat, are y'all failing? Are y'all failing again? Struggling? Struggle bus? Struggle bus? Bigots. Bigots. Yarn. Helicopter. Heels? Golf. Golf. All right. Music back down and then turned off. You're back off. Oh, where'd it go? There we go. And back to Bourbon Street, kids.
Onto the infamous booziest boulevard in the country with
The
name to
booziest
match,
boulevard.
Bourbon
Also, hold on a
Street.
second.
Onto the
Chats. They added concrete barriers to Bourbon Street. How many of y'all know why they did that? Does anybody know why they did that? I was gonna say, if anybody doesn't remember, it happened like a year or two ago. A guy went speeding down the road and then got out and shot at people. He drove onto Bourbon Street with the sole purpose of hurting and killing as many people as possible. So now they've put barriers. They put barriers on the road. Nice.
infamous booziest boulevard in the country with a name to match. Bourbon
Hell
Street.
yeah.
Our first stop is Tropical Isle. The bar
You're goddamn fucking right it is, dude. It's hand grenade time. Let's go see home of the hand grenade, New Orleans' most powerful drink.
credited with inventing a New Orleans staple, the hand grenade.
It's so good.
Hand grenades,
There it is.
okay?
There's our
I don't
boy.
even know what's in them, if I'm being honest.
There's our boy.
There's a lot of stuff. Hands, grenades. It tastes like you melted down some strawberry and watermelon chapstick and mixed it with grain alcohol.
Fucking
This is a hangover.
absinthe.
It's so sweet. It's a hangover in a.
It's so
in a
good. It's
hand
so good.
Hand grenade. These are just smaller than I
You'll be
remember
drinking
them.
it
I
for
thought these
2
were like 3
hours
feet
and still
tall.
be fucked up
I
the
don't
rest
like it
of the
very
night.
much at all. I'm going to drink the entire thing. 5.
Welcome back, Rodine.
With a hand grenade,
I would give it a 5, yeah, because it's an alcoholic drink.
It was invented to compete with the Hurricane. This concoction came to be during World War II to take advantage of the
I think
rum
I've been in
surplus
there
when
to
other
get a
liquors
pizza
like
slice
bourbon were in short
before.
supply.
There
Now
was a
you can
pizza
find
place on
frozen
Bourbon Street I
versions
went
of
to.
the
I
drink
just
in
can't
all
remember if it was
different
that
flavors
one or a
scattered about
different
the French
one.
Quarter, but I went with the original, passion fruit. It tastes like cherry. It only tastes like cherry to me.
Cherry
Pretty good, though.
daiquiri.
Especially on a soupy hot night like tonight. This is what they have all the.
Where's our hand
I
grenades?
don't know what they call those
Listen,
slushy
do you want
machines where they're
booze?
just
I'll get you
constantly going.
booze. I don't
You
have a
get
lot of
these
booze.
tiny,
All I got
tiny,
is a bottle of
tiny little
gin.
Ice particles. You get these incredibly
cheap bottle of
creamy
gin.
drinks as a result. And I gotta have that Babish fan.
Actually, do I?
You know,
Did somebody else
Hurricane?
use it? I don't
You know
remember.
Hurricane? I gotta
I'd have to go
that
check. I'd have to go check the little bar we have.
Now. Does that hurricane
If it's
blow?
still there.
I do got a hurricane blows me off my seat, out my box. On God. On God. On God. On
He's
God.
feeling good.
This hurricane's got me.
Listen, he had a
feeling
hand
little
grenade
winded.
and now
The
he's having a
breezing,
fucking hurricane.
It's tearing down my infrastructure. And
He's
destroying
blitzed.
millions of lives. Destroying millions of lives. You know I got to destroy millions of lives, Babish fam.
Also, I think this is Royal Street that
I'm gonna
he's
give
walking
this,
down.
a 2. No, it's so refreshing. We
Which
give it a
means
4.
I think he's
don't
gonna
like how
walk
it
past
tastes,
some of the
so
art
that's
studios
4.
in a bit.
See, I can still do this. I can still do this.
Get married the
If
good
I
stuff.
couldn't
I
do
do
this,
have the bar
I'd be
fund on
one.
Throne.
Thanks.
Ooh.
Bourbon Street has an incredible way of making the most
There's the other
depraved
tropical
behavior
aisle.
feel almost quaint. One
Also,
minute
that
you're on the
camera
street
being
crushing
really
800
annoyingly
calorie
flashing.
alcoholic slushy. The next you're performing for strangers.
Yeah, I
to
think
earn
there's
plastic
on
jewelry.
Bourbon Street alone. I'm pretty sure there's
But now after let's call
three,
it bearing my
at
soul,
least
it was
3
time for
tropical
something
aisles.
A little more refined.
I think
So we
there's as
headed
many
to
as
Jean
6 in the
Lafitte's
city.
Old Absinthe House to enjoy some absinthe time for something.
Hold on,
a little
hold on,
more
hold on.
refined. So we headed to.
This is where I never got to go. I want to go here. I want to go to the Old Absinthe House so fucking bad. And I didn't get to go last time.
Jean Lafitte's Old Absinthe House to enjoy some absinthe.
Yeah,
the
I'm not
old
going to buy
way.
any other
The
bottles
house.
of
The process
alcohol
starts
until
by
after the
pouring
move.
Bright green, high-proof herbal spirit into a glass over a sugar cube resting on a slotted spade. Then they light the
Goddamn
sugar
right.
cube on fire. Once it's caramelized, they gently drizzle in cold water, melting the sugar into the cocktail and causing it to turn cloudy and slightly sweet. It's delightfully dramatic and tastes like an apothecary-grade black licorice.
I love absinthe.
Classic, dude.
I am not a
Classic.
huge licorice guy, but it just works for me.
What do you
Especially
mean
once
he
you add
flashed?
the ice water and it turns cloudy. It's a mixture of sweets and almost
Until my
like
meat
a
is done fermenting,
Szechuan
you're gonna have to
peppercorn
suffer
kind
for
of
those next
tingly
5 weeks,
numbness.
aren't you?
And I just love it. So I'm a huge absinthe freak. So every time I come to New Orleans,
There's
every
this one, and I
single
think there's
time
also one
I come
place
here, and I've been
in
to
the
New
French
Orleans
Quarter
probably a
called
dozen
like the
plus times
Absinthe
now.
Club,
So, cheers.
and I'd really like to try there too.
We're still out here, baby. We're still out here, baby. Cheers.
It's very funny to find out that Babish is the same kind of drunk I am.
I love you, dude. So look,
It's very funny
Look, I'm
that
completely sober,
he'll
right?
usually
I
do
can-
things
you know, I
like
can
this,
pretend
and
to be
then I just
completely
become
sober. You wanna
goofy
see? You
giggling
wanna see how I do it? You want to see how I do it?
until
You
I
wanna
have a
see
headache,
it?
and then it's over, and then the night's over.
So you give it a 10, right?
Yes, I'm giving it a 10.
A
because
10 for
absinthe-
absinthe? Okay, that's biased.
I bet that sounds crazy.
That's
Next up in our
biased,
New
is
Orleans
what that
drinks
is.
review is a very popular cocktail of saline solution, vitamin B, vitamin C, Zofran,
Are you serious?
mild anti-inflammatories, antioxidants, and
What the fuck, Babish?
hope. It's been about 5 minutes, and I taste vitamins.
Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this?
I think it worked. I
You
think it
okay?
worked. It
I
worked
don't
real
know.
quick here. I don't know. That might have been one of my favorite
I
cocktails.
don't know.
So the
I
base
really
price
don't.
for house call IV therapy, which one might call luxury.
House
It's like
call
$250
IV
a person,
therapy?
and then
That's
each
insane.
add-on,
Oh, Jesus.
You get 2 free add-ons.
Sorry, the
and
webcam
we
fell
did
again.
free,
Scared the
so
shit
that's
out of
one
me.
add-on, I think it was $50. So looking about $275 each, just shy of $600 all told. So
What
taking that
the
cost into
fuck?
consideration and the fact that my mouth tastes like vitamins, I'm gonna give it an 8 because it was
Who
a
the
very
what?
positive experience. But holy God, was
Was
it
that the
expensive.
keep
We didn't
IV
spend
sign that we
much
saw?
at
Also,
the
is that,
casino,
does he have,
at all the holy God, was it?
is that Bobby Hill as a monk as a tattoo on his arm? What kind of lightweight shit is this? Rivet, you don't understand. You don't understand. He drank a hand grenade. He had a hurricane. And then he had absinthe, multiple absinthes, because he went from having the mug one to having what looked like almost like a whiskey glass. He was fucked. Granted, the IV therapy thing feels like really goofy and excessive. You would not catch me doing that shit. I hate IVs. I hate IVs so much. In the nights, he had like 3 of the strongest drinks in New Orleans. It's funny that Bobby's the head chef of a German-Japanese fusion restaurant. He's what?
Expensive. We didn't spend that much at the casino, at all the bars, and at all the restaurants last night combined. Now that we felt like $1 million
okay, here's the
bucks,
park
or
again.
just shy of
Please tell me you're going to
$600 be
Dumont.
precise.
Please tell me
It
you're
was
going
time
to
start
Dumont.
the day.
Damn it.
This time with no closed locations, calling ahead to make sure that our desired stops were open, and definitely no drinking.
Okay.
Well, folks, in a cruel twist
Without
of fate,
power, fuck.
after calling ahead to make sure they were going to be open on Memorial Day and checking the hours on Google, they're closed because they're without power, which not something you
Why
want
did their power
at an
go
oyster
out?
Place. But not all hope is lost.
But patching with an
Our
IV is
Uber
still
driver
overkill?
told us
I
there's an
agree.
amazing
Anybody who
oyster bar
goes-
right down the street,
here.
so we're going to follow.
Anybody who screams to the heavens, either 2 things. There are 2 things that you want to avoid in a person's personality. If they, 1, do IVs recreationally of any kind, I don't care what their reasoning is. No. And 2, coffee enemas. You have to be batshit insane to do a coffee enema. Patching with an IV is extremely overkill. I think it was just, I don't know, maybe it's because they walked past it earlier or something. I can't imagine the reasoning behind it. I would never do an IV recreationally. Vodka enemas only. Got it? No, Rivet. You will kill yourself. Your
Our
kidneys
intuition
will
and the
shrivel
advice from
up and
locals see
implode.
if we can get something tasty inside of our mouths.
Superior
Superior
seafood.
Seafood here, right around the corner.
Oyster
Wasn't hard to
bar.
find. It looks like exactly the kind of place where I want to get some oysters right now. I'd say this is where you get oysters based off the
It
sign
does
alone.
look pretty good. I'm not gonna
It's
lie.
very clear. I appreciate
Listen,
that.
there's
It's very
nothing better than a
pro-consumer.
good oyster
Looks
bar.
like we walked into a real mainstay of New Orleans oysters. This place was open in
Oh,
the
I
late
kind of-
90s.
there is an
and
oyster
since
place
then
in my
it's just
town
become
that's
one of the
that's,
most
like, to die
favorite
for.
places to sit
And they
down
have crazy
have
good
an
chowder,
oyster in
but
a
that's
kind of,
all
like,
I've had from there. I had a
old-world
mojito and a
brasserie
chowder
environment. You got the tin
because their
ceilings,
menu
you
was
got the
so
bare bulbs,
stupid
you got the
expensive.
Art Deco decor. Really cool.
And getting
And
just
we
like,
only
I think
found
it was
because we
getting a
listened to
half a
somebody
dozen
who lives
oysters,
here who was
shucked
like, "You gotta
oysters.
try
I think it was
this."
like
And that,
$24.
Yes, me, is the only way to
Which I was
travel.
like, that's
Two block
fucking
to block.
insane.
Do it a bottle or just 2 glasses?
Just 2 glasses. Thank you. Well, I said no drinking
Oyster
today,
shots?
and as quickly as
Oyster
I said
shots?
that, it went out the window.
You get cats?
For bus
What was that?
travel,
Can you get?
Oh, God.
Ooh,
All right,
good
I'll
catch.
try. In my mouth? Oh, this is a huge mistake, man. Here we go. This is how I'm gonna die.
You really gonna lob a fucking oyster? Catch it! Catch it!
My clothes. Let's stop wasting life forms. It's fine. It's fine. Nobody even noticed. It just looks
It'll be
like
fine. Everybody, listen, being splattered with liquid when you're walking Bourbon Street is totally normal.
All right.
It's
This
in
is my
fact,
first
it's the
oyster on a
expected
cracker, then I
outcome.
think my whole world's about to change. I've only ever been able to handle oysters about this big because I don't like having to swallow it more than once. You know what I mean?
I was gonna say,
But
I
on a
like it on cracker with like Tabasco sauce. He's doing it with what looks
awesome.
like
That's a great
either
oyster.
ketchup.
And seriously, that
I think
unlocks
it's, well,
so much for me.
it looks
Yeah,
like
it's
shrimp
a-
sauce,
it's a
but
whole new
shrimp sauce
world.
already has
I'm excited
horseradish
to
in
eat
it.
these now. It's gonna be like, okay, Brad can have the
So
rest
I don't know why they're
because
giving him fresh horseradish with the sauce
they're
that probably
killer.
already has
So we're putting the
horseradish in
oyster
it.
on a Lance saltine. We're topping it up with cocktail
Saltines
sauce,
only, baby.
horseradish,
No other
and
crackers for
a little
oysters.
squeeze of lemon
You need
juice.
you need the shitty
Just
little
to make it taste
saltines.
less like an oyster.
Crackers made from water, salt, and flour, and that's
Super
it.
clean tasting, not a hint of grit in there.
I still want to do a
Really
crawfish boil
sweet.
one day.
They're very
Ooh.
neutral.
Where
but
do you
they
live,
taste like the
Oka?
ocean.
What
They're
country?
exactly
Do you live in the
what
U.S.? You can
an
you can
oyster
get a
is
crawfish
supposed to
boil
be,
going in
or
the
so I
U.S.
have read
pretty
in the
easily.
encyclopedia. And then to wash it down with a
Champagne.
nice dry glass of champagne. I mean, there's few things finer. You know?
I think
Best
I'd rather have a
oyster
mojito.
experience of my
Virginia?
life,
Oh, you could
texturally
definitely
and
get a crawfish
flavorfully
boil going in
10.
Virginia.
Pens all the way down.
Oysters and
All right,
champagne.
folks, next up, we're going to the epicenter of
oysters
the
now.
original
I want oysters now.
Muffaletta, Central Grocery.
Oh, hold on a second.
into
I've been
the
there.
all the way
Go back
down.
real quick. I know exactly where he is.
All right, folks, next.
All right. You know what, chat? We're gonna do something a little fun real quick. Here, let me do this. French Quarter, New Orleans. All right. Can I get a open to maps? Get out of here. He is right here. Decatur Street. And he's looking for... Oh, I don't think it's showing up on the map. So here's Cafe du Monde. Literally right here down the next road. He's walking past here. Because that's the central market over there. So the store he's going to walk into, I think, is here or here. Let me just double check. What are you? Okay, no, that's the Chicken Shack. Willie's! All right. Wait a second. Hi, there's Jester's. Here it is. This is where he's going. Yeah, this is where he's going. This is the central grocery that he just pulled up to. GeoGuessr? No, I know exactly where he is. I just want to show y'all on the part because like he's in the French Quarter. Here's the whole French Quarter. This perfectly little square, all these square blocks. Oh, I forgot there was a Harley Davidson there. Jesus. And he's gone past Cafe du Monde and is heading basically on this road up Decatur. Decatur? Decatur. I always called it Decatur. I haven't had anybody correct me.
Next up, we're going
But I
to
could
the
still be wrong.
epicenter of the original Muffaletta, Central Grocery. One of my favorite things in the world.
Yeah,
is a
and there's the
Muffaletta.
port right next
man,
to it.
This looks way better than last
Ooh.
time.
Whoa. I'm gonna be honest, this looks and feels different. I don't know if they changed the
it's
bread
big.
recipe or something. It feels
bigger than
lighter,
the one
almost
when
more
he
like
did the
focaccia.
Simpsons
I remember
thing.
it feeling like stiff
Just give us a
and
tour
almost
video of
stale
New
in
Orleans
the
one day.
past.
I'd love to.
Every time I've
Again,
come
one
here
day I would
and I'm
love
with
to do
somebody new
travel
and they
stuff
need to
with
try
y'all
Muffaletta,
because
I'm
I
like,
love
"All right,
to
we gotta
travel.
do it."
I love
And
visiting
it's never that
places.
good. This is way better. They improved
But
the bread like crazy.
it's
Seriously,
travel costs
focaccia-like
money,
now.
and that's always the hardest
I
part.
would give them the original.
So the goal
a
is to
6,
hopefully after
a 7
moving,
on a good day.
be able to
Now, look at
both
this in
try
eight.
and
This is
emphasize
usually a
more time
market
and use my
improvement.
time
This is
more
something
wisely
worth
with
seeking
creation,
out
with
now, not
content
just
stuff.
'cause it's a tourist
And hopefully
trap.
find a
All
job.
right, so next up is
Hopefully find a
Clessy's. This
job
is a
over
family-owned
there
business that
for a little
started as
more- a
street
little more
seafood
income.
Boil. They opened a permanent location in 2018. Since then,
There's
it's
your
become a favorite
crawfish,
place to
baby.
get
There's your
crawfish. I
crawfish.
love crawfish. This makes perfect sense. I think
Y'all
we should
didn't
go in.
stop. Y'all didn't
Thank
stop
you so
Mara's
much.
Saturn. How could you?
Beautiful. Cameraman Brad, creative director Brad, is going to show us how to properly eat a crawfish.
Oh my god. Okay, because before he does this, chat, I cannot tell you what the bar, restaurant, concert hall I tell you all about all the time. During the spring season, during crawfish season, basically in the spring, we would offer big bowls of crawfish. And I cannot tell you how many people would spend $40+ on crawfish and then ask me to show them how to peel it because they had no idea how to eat it. They just wanted it. Now, I want to see if he's going to do this. The vein in a crawfish. You don't need to take the vein in a crawfish. You don't need to take the vein in a crawfish if you wash them right. Usually before cooking a crawfish, you cycle them in water. Usually you have like a cooler or a basket and a container that lets you sift and like let crawfish basically just roil around in the water for a couple hours is probably best.
Okay,
All right.
so I learned this from my good friend John Ollier taught me this, who is from
Pull the tail
Louisiana.
off.
Pull, twist.
Break the first top
then
piece off.
you take this before you bite it.
Break the
And you
top piece
peel
off.
back one of these top layers to get that off.
And then it usually comes
And
out
you
far
grab the
easier.
meat and you
Pinch
push
the
down
bottom.
right here at the back and work the meat out.
Kind of wiggle it out. There you go.
And,
Now do the head.
well, it's supposed to, if you do it the right way, it deveins it for you too when you pull it out, when you put your thumb there. But I did not devein.
I didn't realize you're supposed to devein these. I've only ever just
Nah,
eaten
it's not that big of a deal.
And now I need to see how you eat the head.
Usually
you
you
just
could
slip
just
some
wash
head
them
for me.
out to the point where
don't do it.
technically you
It's
starve
too
them.
corporeal
Technically
for
they're
me.
starved
Okay,
and basically just
okay.
poop everything out.
Twist and pull.
So their
There we go.
digestive tract is empty.
Oh, look at that tamale.
Boom.
All right, so now you
That
pinch
shit's,
down here at the
that's
bottom.
just good. That's
We'll
just
get there.
good.
Come on.
Oh,
Miss
Almost,
some.
almost.
That's fine.
Yep.
Just gotta
Crawfish tails are the easy
yank
part of
that.
crawfish. Getting the
And
rest
that,
of the meat.
kids, is where etouffee
That's
comes
where you
from.
kind of got to suck it up.
We'll be right back.
Oh no! Wait. What about the rest? No, you bastards.
That was really good.
Oh, was
Very
that an
vein forward.
enforced
And then the
commercial
next thing you
break?
gotta
It
do,
just didn't play.
Slurp some brains for
Yes.
tamale.
Yes. Yes.
That is fantastic. It's definitely the best
Fantastic.
crawfish I've ever had.
Fantastic.
They're huge and they're delicious. Like really, really good. The meat.
You don't know
is
how to food,
soft
you
and
can't
sweet,
food. Marin's rulership
really
is
heavy
going
with the
crazy.
bay.
No, I
Nice
just
and
thought it was
spicy,
crazy
too.
to spend so
Great
much money and
flavor
then just be like,
profile.
all right, guys, how do
really
we eat this?
competently cooked. No surprises across
Because
the
I
board.
feel like you
And of
should
course,
have
you
the
Gulf shrimp.
expectation and or
This,
ooh,
I'm going
sauces.
to try. And some of there, they got, I don't know what's going on here. There's
Remoulade,
definitely drawn
kind
butter
of
or
a butter-based
crawfish butter or
sauce, it looks like, and then just a shrimp sauce.
So sweet. That's dessert.
Because
God,
it,
that's
it
good.
looks almost like honey butter.
I mean, like I've had good crawfish boils.
It looks
but
almost
this
like a
takes
honey butter
the
sauce.
crawfish cake. I struggle to find anything wrong with it. That's 10. I love it.
What if you're trying it for the first time?
And that
That's
sweetness
totally
got me
fair.
thinking about another place no
There it
trip
is.
to New Orleans would be complete.
Okay, chat, welcome to Cafe Du Monde. Real quick, if you don't know what Cafe Du Monde is, it is the quintessential beignet location. If you see this lady here on the left, standing next to another guy wearing the paper hat, that is their uniform. They wear bow ties, cute little aprons. When I went to this place, I went at 5 in the morning. This place was empty. And I emphasize, absolutely empty. It was me, one guy reading a newspaper, and then some of these people in uniform just having nothing to do. And it was so nice. It was so nice. Because this, the way it is right now, is practically barren in comparison to how it is on some days. You can actually see the line over way in the back, just basically straight across this whole room, how it's already sticking out of the building. Here, we'll
Without
probably get to see it.
Cafe Du Monde, the most famous spot for beignets.
There's
and
Cafe
chicory
Du Monde.
coffee.
There's also
We get
Cafe
an order of beignets
Beignet
and a
further
chicory
inside the
coffee,
French
please?
Quarter.
Thank you very much.
So if you ever go,
Yes,
if you ever
please.
go,
Thank you so much. Have a good,
I highly
You
recommend
too.
coming here. They got theirs to
We're gonna do a
go.
walk and eat on this one. So
I
let's
always
see how
get
these
mine
guys are.
there because I absolutely love sitting in.
Can't get powdered sugar on a white shirt. You can't do it. Oh no. Good. This is a good,
Good shit,
fresh,
dude.
hot batch.
It's basically
Fluffy.
it's
You can see
basically
the
donuts
inside.
and coffee.
It's thick and dense. You can see that it's.
And my
like,
favorite is
really,
to,
you know,
dip the
open and
beignet
airy,
in the
but it's also
coffee
dense and chewy
because
in
it makes the
in
powdered
just
sugar
right
super
way.
soggy and
then, of
stick to
course,
the
they just
donuts,
mound it up with
to the
powdered sugar.
beignet.
No better way to start the day.
Sells some Cafe
Or in
Du
our
Monde
case,
coffee.
any
Yeah,
day.
that's how popular
I
it
feel like
is.
New Orleans has the highest
It sells the
ratio of
coffee and they
tourist
usually
traps
sell the
that are
beignet
good.
mix in grocery
Like,
stores.
the tourist traps in New York, I wouldn't go to if you had a gun up my butt. But like a bunch of the tourist traps in New Orleans are worth going to. Cafe Du Monde's one of them.
Yeah,
But the look of
it's-
it, the history
the thing
of it,
is-
the aesthetic of it.
It's the difference between a New York tourist trap and a New Orleans tourist trap. New Orleans tourist traps are tourist traps because they're good, because they're historical places, because they have good food, because they're original. New York tourist traps are fucking gift shops on wheels. They're basically just gift shops with tiny extra things attached to them.
And the fact that it's a damn good beignet.
Yeah, Piggly
I'm
Wiggly.
gonna
Don't
give
can't
the
forget Food
beignet
Lion.
9
Can't
out
forget
of
Food
10.
Lion.
It's fantastic. Now the chicory coffee. I was drinking my coffee black because I'm really cool. So I
Cafe
usually
ala?
order my chicory coffee black, and she put cream in it, and it's really way better than usual. Chicory
Yeah.
coffee is a pretty intense flavor, edging in on
It's
bitter.
usually Cafe a
And
Latte
throwing
is
some
very
cream in
light,
there. It's just, oh, that's nice.
more
No sugar,
watery
though.
than I'm used to, like a lot of
Oh, I
creamier
like that.
coffees.
Let me give it a
But
7.
honestly, I think it's
Just
part of the
good.
experience.
It goes real damn
I think
nice
it's part
with
of the
a
experience.
fried donut at night.
I haven't been
wanted
to
let delicious
the
French
Mid-South
Creole
in a long
donuts carry me
time.
into a sugar
I haven't
coma,
stayed
I
in
couldn't do
Tennessee
that.
a
Not
while,
yet,
which is where
because
I
it was
remember
time
seeing
for
Food
our
Lion.
grand finale. All right, it's golden hour. I'm wearing
So,
the
you
only
know,
collared shirt
as
that
you
I
do.
packed, so we must be going somewhere nice, and it's about as
Are we?
nice a place as you can go
Puts
to.
puts
in
on
New
polo.
Orleans.
We're going somewhere
This
nice,
is where
dude.
Emeril Lagasse and Paul Prudhomme got their
Polos,
start.
really.
It is one of the oldest restaurants in town, and it's every bit.
Also, raise
as
your hands.
delicious
Let me
and
see your belly
exquisite and
button.
luxuriant
I can
as
see
it
that.
was
I can
when
see
it was
that shirt
opened
is
in
tight enough
1893.
and not
We're
nearly
going to
long
the
enough
one
that
and
if you
only
raise your hands, I'll see your belly
Commander's
button.
Palace. We use the word iconic a lot.
hey, we
but
finally get to
they're-
come
they're
back
very
here.
seldomly
It's
so
Commanders.
literal. I mean, you see it from a mile away. All right, there we go.
Oh
A
my
trip to
God, I
Commander's
never saw
Palace
the
is
inside
as
of this
much
place.
a
I didn't
part
realize
of
how
New
fucking
Orleans as the
bougie it
humidity.
was.
As we were escorted to our table, we took in the chandeliers, white tablecloths, and a smattering of balloons they put on display for birthday celebrations. We kicked things off
Jesus,
with a
dude.
Sazerac, New Orleans official
this Vsauce
cocktail,
guy?
and
Nah, this
basically
is
an old
Babish.
fashioned that learned Cajun French.
Sazeracs. Cheers, man.
Yeah, it's Babish.
Sazerac gets a 10. I love
Not
the
enough
Sazerac.
flashing,
It
Baron's
combines everything I love
uns-
about an old fashioned.
unsatisfied? Was that supposed to be
They
satisfied?
wash the glass with absinthe. It's one of my very favorite cocktails, and to have one here in New Orleans in the perfect context, it's just
God, the view
tense.
though.
Next, an
The
almonds
glass
brooch,
box
consisting of a
table,
single
apparently.
Hokkaido scallop cured in local field
Oh.
peppers for an hour before landing on our plates.
Wow, that's the best scallop I've ever had in my life.
I was gonna say, I feel like
just
it's
a tiny
probably
little
very
slice of it
fruity.
that I want more of. It's been cured.
Strawberries.
But
I think
it's
those
not
are
super
pistachios.
firm. It almost tasted like scallop nigiri, in that it tasted raw
Is it-
and soft and oceanic. But it was cured just enough that it had a nice
Is
firmness
it
to
weird
so
to
that
think
your
to
teeth
imagine
cut
the place
through it
that looked like the
rather
Commander's
than,
Palace
kinda
on the
chew it.
outside?
Wow.
It looks like a goofy little New
10.
Orleans place where
With
I'd
our
expect to
palates
find.
sufficiently amused, our waiter, David, arrived with their extensive menu.
Why is she wearing
he
a
walked
hat?
us through every section, pointing out the standouts, house
Ramelade
signatures,
roasted
and we said
shrimp,
yes
curried
to everything.
lamb.
And we're starting with a classic of theirs whose recipe has been unchanged for more than 60 years. Turtle soup al sherry.
Turtle soup.
So you guys poured a little bit of sherry on top.
Touch of Amontillado sherry to finish it off.
Very cool.
Oh.
Yeah, it is cooked with the sherry, but the little hit of it right before you get it kind of relivens all those flavors.
Ooh.
Very excited. Thank you, David.
The connoisseur. I am not a
Oh.
connoisseur.
God.
Not even a
Probably
little
made
bit.
With a
I just like
chocolate
things.
brown roux, stewed and simmered.
No, it's
very slowly, very
I
gently. for
can't
very
describe
long periods
myself
of
as a
time. There's
connoisseur because I don't have
definitely
nearly
in
the like
there. The most classic New Orleans
refined
flavors
understanding of a
are
lot of
present
things.
and accounted for. And then that sherry, like you said,
It'd be
it
fun. It'd be an
wakes
interesting job at some
everything
point
up.
if I ever became like
Brings
a
this
wine
freshness to
connoisseur
it.
and was
Taste
like,
is good. And the turtle
this pair would pair
it's like
well
the
with
most
your
tender
dinner, man.
dark meat chicken I've ever tasted, basically.
I've
It's
never
not
had
like
turtle,
my favorite
I'm
thing
pretty
I've eaten tonight,
sure.
but it's up there. I'll give it a 9. It's
Yeah,
lovely.
I'm pretty sure
And as
I've
if we
never
weren't
had turtle
already
soup before, but
appetized
I'd
enough,
love to
we
try
moved
it.
on to proper appetizers.
I'm a connoisseur
We
of big
have
anime
our shrimp
titties.
and
You're
tasso
the
Hennigan.
connoisseur of big
This is
anime
wild
titties,
white
Ember. We
shrimp.
already knew
They're
that.
flash fried. They've been stuffed with house-made tasso, and they are tossed in a crystal hot sauce for blanc that's over a 5-pepper jelly with pickled okra and sweet onion.
I would kill for that dish.
Oh, no.
They were in Commanders
so
all
good.
day.
Oh
I think they
my.
just got there in the late afternoon.
Like,
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
The tasso ham is the hammiest
The
ham
pickled
that ever
jalapenos, or is
hammed
that okra?
on
I can't tell if
Ham
it's okra or if
Street
it was
in
jalapenos.
Hamtown. It's so hammy. It's shrimp and ham dancing, just like in nature. The shrimp is perfectly cooked. It's got a little crisp on the outside from the
But
flash
it is
frying.
also like it's a
And
big
this
restaurant, big fancy
where
restaurant,
the
so it
hot
probably
sauce
does
flavors
take a
come
while.
from. Oh, and it's hot. Oh, on its own?
Okay, it was right. It was jalapeno
Forget about
based.
it. Whoa. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's hot.
Yeah, oh my goodness. Oh,
With some
bye.
nice pickled red onions. We got some okra here.
Now I'm hungry
See what
again.
that's all about. I'm
Listen,
not supposed to be eating
same.
this with my fingers.
I need to go
Wonderful.
pick up my prescriptions
Really
after stream today.
exquisite
Well,
layers
a
of flavors
prescription, my
from
monthly
briny
prescription, the
to
$90
spicy
prescription.
to rich to
Look,
fresh.
So I got Twitch
to
paid today,
hammy
so
and
I'm paying my
smoky
bills and going
light
to get my
dark,
prescriptions today.
Happiness and sadness. coins.
And then we'll see if I have
two
enough
sides
left
of them.
over to
It's
maybe get
exquisite.
something
I'll give it
nice
a
to
10.
eat.
I love it. There's no part of this dish
Jalapeno
that I
hot
don't
since
want
when?
to eat
Jalapenos
with
have
my
always had like
fingers
the
I
bit
just
of
did.
kick. I wouldn't call them like
And I'm not supposed to
crazy
do.
spicy, but jalapenos are
And
definitely
then our server
spicy.
David's favorite starter, and a dish that happens to be 100% vegan and gluten-free.
This
Oh?
is our hickory smoked cauliflower. It's been brined in the style
Wait.
of a tasso ham.
Oh,
Then we
that's another
have
mushroom.
cold
Okay, that was a
smoked it
mushroom.
And charred it.
Wow.
That's served over a Louisiana field pea hummus with green tomato chow chow, chimichurri, roasted
He looks
oyster
like a deer
mushrooms.
caught in
Please enjoy.
headlights when he's talking.
I don't know
Oh
if they're
my
getting
god.
the return on their investment. Like they said that they cure the cauliflower.
Or basically
the
where
same way that
spice
they do
begins.
ham
Yeah, I would agree with
tasso.
that.
It just
It's
tastes
basically
like
where
roasted
it's like the
cauliflower
first
made
spicy
very,
pepper
very well
that you get, or like
competently smoked
that,
and
or
roasted
what are they?
cauliflower.
Chili
It's
pekins?
not blowing my
Chili pekins
face
are
off
pretty
like
good
some of the
beginner
other stuff
pepper.
has up to this point. So
Especially
I'm gonna
'cause
give
they
it
look
a-
like
I'm
tiny
gonna give it an
berries.
8. Like it's a great side dish. I would highly recommend it. The fact that
It's
we're
a
sitting
side
here
dish.
now eating one of the finest meals in New Orleans, considering how we were this morning, speaks to the efficacy of that fourth cocktail that we tried out. The IV one.
But it was time to swap cocktails for wine to
Lactated
enjoy with
ringers?
our mains.
What the
So
fuck is
I
that name?
wanted to get like a dusty old bottle, something that felt atmospherically correct. But we got pork and fish coming, so I can't really go red, can I? You could. David knows it all. He knows how to pair red wine from Loire Valley.
Good. I'll
with
get
fish
you
and
something
pork.
special, boy. I'll get
That
you something
is
special.
basically like rubbing
Ordain's
your
dancing again.
belly
Chat,
and
bully
patting
Ordain.
your head while coming
Wine
out to your
time.
family. Wait, I can do that. Hold on. Yeah, see, motherfuckers?
It's not that
I'm
hard.
dead.
So here we
Come
have
on.
our pecan-crusted goldfish, one of the oldest, definitely classic preparations and a signature dish here at Commander's Palace. With that is a
Pecan
sauté
encrusted.
of roasted corn, melted leeks, charred kale, and shaved asparagus.
Oh, I forgot. I didn't
Now,
turn the
you
caption
have,
back on
a
for
dish
y'all.
that
I'm
we
so
just
sorry,
put
guys.
on for summer, and I'm very excited about. So here you have our tasso brine, 48-hour brine pork chop,
Eh.
dusted with a
Yeah,
house-made
it's always
barbecue
gonna be a pork
spice, so we
chop.
get nice
I'm more
char on
excited about
cook
that
it to your
fish.
temperature. This is a mid-rare this evening for you. We add to that whiskey as well as apple cider vinegar
I
for a
am.
nice pop.
I want to know
You
about
guys
that
are doing
fish.
so
Show me
much.
the fish.
Do you take care of yourselves? Do you make time for you?
When we're not here, we're not here.
Thank you so much. It looks unbelievable.
Pleasure's all mine.
Cheers.
But I
This
need to take a
should
nap.
be
That's
cooked
okay,
to
Oka. If
stately
you want to go
medium
take a
rare.
nap, that's totally
Oh.
fine.
Beautiful.
I am a pork chop enjoyer. I always figured
I
this
wanna try
feels
the
like there's
pork on
nothing
its
crazy
own
special about
first,
pork
just
chops.
to see what kind of I've got myself
I mean, I
into.
say that, but then I also
It's
really do like
cockfight.
tonkatsu, so maybe I'm a hypocrite. I think I'm a hypocrite.
I die, Horatio, is a line from King Lear. Anyway, I'm
Hamlet.
dead. That's what I'm trying to say about his fam. I'm dead. I'm dead. So the pork is
Yo, fuck
I
the
really
pork.
wanna
Give me
try
the
this
fish. I want to know what this
bacon
pork, this
confit
fucking
sweet potato.
a sweet potato looks really good, almost candy.
Beautiful. I think it was Jake.
I would hibernate for winter.
Like he popularized.
It's always the
sous
funny
vide
thing
sweet
too to see
potatoes
the people that
because
like.
when cooked at low temperatures.
This is a
there's
weird
some
thing to
kind
say.
of
People that
an
have like
enzyme
enough
that's
money to feed
activated,
themselves well,
and it makes
eat
them
so much
more
food in a
naturally
day.
sweet.
And then I'm
without
over here and
adding
I'm
any
like,
sugar.
all right,
I doubt
what am
they've
I gonna
added
buy
any
for
sugar
my
to the sweet
one
potato,
good
but
meal a
tastes
day? And what am I gonna have as
decidedly
like
sweet.
snacks?
Because they've cooked it gently by confying it.
Or
So
basically like
it's
one of the
dum-dum
cheapest
good.
kinds of meats
That
you
is
can have.
fine.
That's true. Pork is a
Wonderful,
pretty cheap
wonderful
meat.
pairing. This
Pork
is a
chops
wonderful
even
dish.
more
I'm gonna give
so.
it a 9. It's exquisite. This is one of their oldest and most signature dishes. It's saying it's
But
made the
this
same
fish
way
looks
as they did since
awesome.
1960s.
The sauce,
Prosecco
the little
cooked
arugula
jumbo
salad on
lump
top.
crab over spiced New Roads pecan crusted fish with
Wait, there's
roasted
crab in
corn,
there?
asparagus, grilled kale, melted leeks, and whiskey spiked crushed corn cream. In other words, you.
How
Very
much was
salty.
it? What is the menu
Interesting.
price?
Very, very
Hold
salty.
on. Chat, we have to do this. What was it? Commander's Palace Creole. It says Creole restaurant. Sure, if that's what you want to claim. Let's see. Can we find their menu? I need to know. Menus. Reservation. Menu tab. Is this? No? Cuisine? Oh, there we go. Oh, it's not going to give me the price. All right, dinner menu. Let's see. Starters. Lamb soups, entrees. There it is. $41. Fuck me running, dude. Fuck me running. All right. Yeah, $52 for the farm fish fillet. Oh, not fish. It's not fish. It's the grilled center cut. Okay. Oh, God, that's painful. 3-course? Price of entree includes soup or salad and dessert. Does that do the same thing for these entrees? No? Doesn't look like it. Some of these, oh. $85 per person plus optional wine pairing, $40. Of course, I have cheese. I'm Dutch, as it's all I can afford. Yeah. Like, I struggle to consider having a meal, like a single meal that costs more than, say, like, probably $18 at the most. Mainly because so many places now are like, yeah, whatever you want to order starts at $14. I'm like, all right, can I get some like a guac with it that's like, it says it's here on the menu, and then by the end of it it's like another $6+ I'm like, oh man. Oh man. All right.
Okay.
That's
the
a
melted
$41
leeks
fish.
and the corn and all this other stuff going on down here is very sweet.
Should be a
Perfectly
basic
cooked
human right.
fish.
That's my TED talk. I agree.
Like,
it
you can tell
feels
just
like
from looking at
the
it.
food costs in the U.S.
Enough
are
of
so
trying things
crazy.
one at a time. That's
I
not
missed
how
when
you eat in New Orleans.
expensive meals at a
Eat
restaurant
the food
were
that's
like
in front of you on the plate.
$25.
I'm gonna stop analyzing it like it's your childhood issues.
Like, it looks so good, but literally this one meal would be
Look
something
bad
I would have to
again.
plan for.
On
I would have to
God,
purposely
that's
set
straight fire.
money aside
Let
and
this
be
man
like,
cook.
this is what this is
Say
going
less.
towards.
Oh, how does it pair with the wine? That's an interesting question I just asked
The thing is, though, is
myself
it's food is a
It's
basic human
funky,
right, I
but
believe,
it's
on the
light
level
and
that
fruity, and none of the heavily
everybody
tannic
should
or
have the basic
abrasive
food and
ways
ingredients
that
necessary to be able
red
to
wine
cook
just
for
doesn't work with
themselves.
fish. It works so fabulously.
I can't say
Thanks,
that, like,
David. He's right behind you.
5-star
Can you hear
Michelin
what I'm
chefs
saying?
are a human
David.
right.
I can't hear me.
That's not
It's
the
a
same.
fabulously cooked piece of fish.
Yeah, food,
The
yes.
crust
Good
is
food,
really
a different
nicely,
story.
like salty and
Having the
crunchy,
capacity
then
and
it's
all
got
of
this
the
perfectly
ingredients necessary
sweet,
to be able to
umami-forward
provide for
kind of
yourself to stay
corn
alive, I agree. It should be a
slog
human right.
stuff going on below. It's a tad. Like, there's a
Way
reason
cheaper
that
than
this has
Canada,
been
even in
on
restaurants?
the menu for the longest amount of time.
Isn't that
This
isn't that
a
mostly a
classic,
conversion
and it will continue to be,
thing?
hopefully, for the foreseeable future. This wine paired beautifully.
But yeah, that
with this
also,
meal.
yeah,
I'm gonna give it
it's,
pairing a 10 and his attention to detail and knowledge a 10.
It's
But
also
as
the
a
difference
wine
between like
itself,
living
like,
near the
I
coast
like
and living
funky old
inland.
wines. This
If you're living near the
airs a
coast,
little too
fish
funky
and
for
like
me.
seafood is usually
It's
much more
fantastic.
affordable.
It's not my personal favorite, but it's still
But like
so
when I
good.
lived in New England,
And I'm gonna give it
seafood
a
and
8.
stuff was very
Oh,
affordable.
oh my
Getting
goodness.
a like
This is what we call
dozen
the
of
queen
oysters
Creole
was
desserts.
about
This is our bread pudding
$18.
souffle finished with a
Oh.
warm whiskey cream tableside. The very end of the season now, you're
Oh,
lucky
man.
to enjoy the Ponchatoula strawberry shortcake. This is absolutely one of our iconic dishes. This is a warm,
All
fluffy
right, guys, I
biscuit.
ate the meal. I
It's
have
topped with
nothing else to live
macerated
for. I'm gonna go ahead and
Ponchatoula
jump out
strawberries.
this
And
window
then,
behind
the
me.
biggest thing on this is this wonderful balance of how you have very crispy
Back on the exchange
top
rate?
biscuit
Yeah.
and the nice and macerated
Yeah.
soaked bottom biscuit. And this is from our tasting
Last year,
menu. I
everything was
really
the
wanna
same
share
menu
this
price,
with
higher
guys.
than you would expect
This
to see
is
in Canada.
a Liqueur 43 butter cake that we
That's
have
so bites.
topped with a
Oh,
vanilla
pretzel
Bavarian
brittle.
cream. This is again with
It's like peanut
Ponchatoula
butter, but with
strawberries
pretzel.
as well as a Chambord syrup, and is finished with
Look at
pretzel
how thick
brittle.
the bottom of that
I
pie
love
is.
souffle. It's super gooey and eggy. It's like see how it's jiggling, like it's bouncing.
Oh, is it like a pudding? Is it like an egg pudding inside?
Oh, soft and bouncy, ready. There's also crunchy and
Oh,
chewy
no bread
flavors
pudding.
from
Well,
the
I guess
parts that are
this kind of counts.
caramelized on
This
the
is kind
outside
of
of the
a
ramekin.
spin on bread pudding.
Look at this. When you go down in here deep, you'll see you get this bready, almost cake-like
Almost cookie.
part of the souffle. Then up on top of that, you have the light, fluffy, eggy part of the
Ooh.
souffle. An intoxicating
Seasonal
dichotomy
seaside,
of
maybe
flavors and
cheaper, very
textures
much
happening in
cheaper.
this spoonful.
Like here, if I wanted to get a
It's
dozen
as
oysters,
simple
it'd be
as
like
it is
30-something
complex.
dollars.
And yes, that sounds like bullshit because it is.
Here's steak, it's a couple bucks. Here's
So
steak with a
everything
drop of
is.
ketchup next to it. That'll be
This is
1
bullshit.
million.
That's a 10.
Listen, anybody that's
All right, so
selling you a
this is
steak
special.
for
It's
more
a
than like
butter cake with
$30 is
pretzel honeycomb
scamming
and
you.
some other stuff that I didn't
Wholeheartedly
absorb because I'm not
scamming you.
smart or observant. I don't know what textures to
Unless
expect
it's like
right
one of
now.
those
They both
Brazilian
felt
steakhouses
like they
that's
were
like
barely
they're
there.
running around
Like,
with
everything cut like this whole
meat
thing was
on
made of
sticks
whipped
and like
cream.
giving you as much as you want. That's
We have the
fine.
cake base,
Hi, Kono.
which is so soaked with some kind of vanilla
Hi,
syrup
Kono.
or something that it almost comes off like
Steaks
a
are
custard.
overrated and
It's
dumb and overpriced.
soaked to its socks. It's cake. It is cake that they have soaked within an inch of its life and
No,
compressed
Kono.
so that it becomes
No.
this almost like fudgy.
Yeah, I wouldn't steak
sweet,
anyways.
syrupy,
I wouldn't touch
custardy
steak
kind
with a
of
fucking
thing.
10-foot
And all of
pole.
it just tastes like butter and vanilla. That's
Wagyu
it.
steak?
Just butter and vanilla.
I mean, if you go
It's
to a good place
delightful.
where
It
it's
is
like
not
more readily
my
available,
personal
it's not
cup
going to
of
cost
tea.
$30.
I'm going to give it an 8.
It's not gonna
If
cost
you like butter and
$30.
vanilla, you're going to give this a 10. Last up, the
Steak
thing
has
I am
never been worth
undoubtedly
it.
most
Not
excited
at
about.
any point.
Strawberry
Also, that
shortcake
cream
is
looks
one of my
really
favorite
good.
Things. It's kind of like pizza in that you
It looks
buy the
really thick.
made shortcakes and just put some Driscoll strawberries on there and spray some
I just
whipped cream
realized
on
how much
top.
louder her heat
It's
is. I
still
keep turning
a
it
7 out of
down.
10. And what we have here is one of those
I'm taking
dishes
your
that
steak,
you
Kono? Yeah,
cannot
take Kono steak.
make very bad. You
Local
could make
butcher
it
is
the
antibiotic
worst
free,
I've ever
organic,
had, and
free
I'm
range
still gonna eat
beef.
all
I buy a
of it.
ribeye for
Got a good-
$35
good
bucks.
piece of
Jesus.
Shortbread, good strawberry. good bit of
No.
free. There she is, folks, the big free.
Not a chance. Not in my house.
Ugh, ugh. But I'm f***ing with you. It's amazing. 10, 10, 10.
I was gonna say, wait,
no
what?
Questions, no jokes, no commentary.
I want a happy
I'm not
cow.
gonna
That cow
talk
is
to the
dead,
rest of
Kono. It doesn't matter.
New
Well,
Orleans is, without a
you know
doubt,
what? I agree
my
with you.
favorite city in the world.
I
spent
agree
my
with you.
First summer there after Hurricane Katrina, gutting houses, making a documentary, and slowly.
I was gonna say,
falling in
no, you
love
were-
with
you
all
were
the little
definitely
pieces
correct.
That we helped put back
I would
together.
rather
In
Cal
fact,
live
my
a happy
first ever
life than being
tattoo
forced
commemorated
into
that
industrial
experience.
farming
Now
practices.
I can't go more than a year without feeling the warm hug of its thick.
How do you
summer
cook your
air,
steak, Kono?
heavy with Arabian
How do you cook your
jasmine
steak?
and tinged with the bittersweet warble of a beat-up saxophone. We hit the most well-known.
Hell
spots
yeah,
on
just
this
wait until
trip,
about
but no
5
matter
p.m.
what
on
jagged
Bourbon Street, and you're gonna hear
cobblestone
jazz
street
coming
you
almost
wander
out.
down, you're bound
Stop
to find
riding on
one worth
buildings!
making. Packed in ice, swimming
Y'all
in
see that
liqueur,
bitch?
sizzling with spice or boiling in oil. Find known spots on this trip, but no matter what jagged
She's scratching her name onto the fucking
cobblestone street you
windowsill.
wandered
Ma'am! Why? This should be reserved for... No, Kono! Not fucking damn it, dude. It's art you wouldn't understand. My ass, it's fucking art.
down, you're bound to find
Hold on, I want to see as close as we can to her, so hold on. It looks like she's etching it in like cursive. I can't quite tell fully. I see like a shadow on a letter here. Regardless, she is not like your art is ass. Mary's ass
bound
is
to find a
art.
memory
Confirmed.
worth
True.
making.
That is
Packed
true.
in ice, swimming in liqueur,
My ass
sizzling
is in
with
fact
spice
art.
or boiling in oil.
Don't
It's
you
one of the
fucking
few
forget it.
cities to live up to its moniker, the Big Easy, a sultry, lush arboretum that slows you to a crawl with
It's
icy.
oh, I wish I
cocktails,
had the
lavish
picture of one
luncheons, and
alley I
sticky
took a picture
swelter.
of
My only advice for
where it
visiting
was.
is to
Hold on.
crawl with
It
icy
was like
cocktails.
oh damn it. It
Moniker,
was
the Big Easy.
basically kind of like these houses here where they have just all of these flowers spilling out of the flower boxes on the balconies. I had a picture of a 4-story building built like that was just covered in plants, and I wish I still had it.
Sultry, lush arboretum that slows
You
you
bitch.
to a crawl with icy cocktails.
You
lavish
bitch,
luncheons, and
Jay.
Sticky swelter. My only advice for visiting
How dare
New
you.
Orleans is if you've never been there, go. And if
Yes,
you've been
go to
there
New Orleans.
before, go back. I'll see you there. And bring beads because I'm gonna earn them the old-fashioned way.
That's a face. All right. All right. Is there first course retiring in Japan? Oh boy. I kind of want more New Orleans food stuff. Let's see. See if we can find a New Orleans food tour. Oh, is this side by side? Oh, somebody took the video from the person who actually did it the first time and Babish's, and then did it side by side with The Simpsons. Purger Boom Review? What? What does that mean? What does the Brit versus American? Oh no. Okay, no, that's 2 hours. That's way too long. We'll do this one.
Hey everyone, hope you're having an amazing
Welcome
day
back
at
to the
Mark
park.
Williams. I'm in New Orleans, Louisiana,
All right,
which
20
is one of
spots.
the greatest food
Give me a
cities
three.
and
They're at Dumont.
always exciting cities
They're
in
back
the
at Central
United
Grocery.
States. Today we're going on an ultimate food tour of the French Quarter. And the French Quarter is the center of the city. This is where the city began. And we're gonna eat some of the legendary food, some of the historic food. I don't know if you're supposed to shot it or you're supposed to spoon it.
16.
Let's shot it.
17, 18, 19. That is a
Especially
huge
focusing on
oyster.
Creole
20. Okay.
food.
All right.
So It's all
Full-time
coming up in
eater
this video.
Lamau?
I
Oh
cannot
my
wait
God.
To explore the city and share
Bananas.
all of the food with you from the
Banana
French Quarter
Foster.
right now.
Redeems 100 scotch. You fucking wish, Chainsaw. Now, I've never seen these green oysters, so I don't even know what they are. Huh.
You ready for this ultimate French Quarter tour today?
Oh, I'm definitely ready for it. We've been practicing the stomach and the gut just to get prepped for this, but there's a good chance.
Let me take you to church. Moldy oysters? No, it looks like it's herbs or something.
Place that we're going. Actually, let me just quickly tell you
Grins, what are you
about
crying
New
at?
Orleans. It's one of the oldest cities in the United
We've
States.
done it before. Go
And
rounds?
the
What do you mean
French
we've done it
Quarter,
before?
Which is where the French first came and settled
There's the
on
mom
the
in the
banks
background there
of
at the
the
artillery
Mississippi
park.
River, is the original part of the city. The first place that we're gonna go is the most historic,
In New
the
Orleans?
most
Still gonna
iconic
shower now? Enjoy your
coffee
shower,
shop
plague.
in all of the French Quarter. Maybe in all of the United States.
I did do /me on the streamer. She went through 50 pushes. What the fuck? That's crazy. I can't believe they fell for it. Nah, because I know to look for the work it redeems.
So the first place that we're beginning.
See,
we're
there's
launching off
the
this
line.
ultimate tour
There's the
of
real
French
line at
Quarter
Café
is
du Monde.
Café du Monde, or the cafe of the world. Dates back to I believe, let me just check that fact, but I think it dates back to 1862.
Thank you for the Kofi
And
link,
it started
Ordain, you fucking
originally at
goofball.
the French market, and now it is just a sprawling open-air courtyard.
Oh, it's the Coin
One of
Smasher
the
things.
Most iconic
Du Mold,
scenes
not
and
Du
place to
Mold.
sit, to have a coffee and to have a special beignet, which I'll show you what that is.
It's a donut.
In
Why are
the
you so
entire city
close?
of New Orleans.
I don't
We
like this.
gotta
Why are you
try
so
cafe
close?
au lait and also black coffee.
I don't like this.
Both, right?
Y'all can't see
I'll
it, but I
take
was
2
also
coffees.
leaning away. A little coffee. A little bit of coffee as a treat.
Does it come with a foundation of powdered sugar on the bottom?
Oh,
Goddamn right it does.
Like always.
Goddamn
What's your
right it
biggest
does.
tip about beignets?
You cannot breathe while you take a bite. Otherwise, you're gonna choke on all the powder.
You're either gonna choke on it or you're about to blow it across the entire table. Which is the fun part.
Right there, you just eating powdered sugar.
Now,
Open air, some jazz.
it seems like they're
music
eating in and they still have them in the
background.
bags. Hold on a
You
second.
come here to drink.
When I went there, like I said, I went there at 5 in the morning. They gave me a plate of beignets and an actual coffee cup. So I'm a little surprised to see that they've, I guess, just gone all disposable.
Coffee, but it's a special type of coffee.
Or maybe I was just lucky
And
to
then
go
also
that
the
early.
Beignets. Beignets? Beignets?
Is that the worst kind of white powder blown across the table?
Deep
What?
fried little pillows of dough.
What?
Just submerged.
Yeah, I got the
in powdered sugar.
luxury. Granted, they were like basic white plates in a very plain white mug. It was kind of a small mug too, but it was
There's
still
no
big enough for me to
shortage
dip my
of powdered
beignets in.
sugar. You gotta lean over.
You definitely want to lean over.
You don't want to wear it. You don't want to wear it.
Do not breathe in.
Do not breathe in.
Hold your breath until you take your first bite. All right, cheers, guys.
It probably came with too much logistics than was necessary. Because now they only have to clean up after making the beignets, as opposed to
Oh yeah.
what was it? As opposed to having to clean all of the plates and cups that people
Oh,
use.
so the actual dough is not really sweet, I don't think, right?
No, not
So
at
the
all.
sweetness is all the powdered
The thing
sugar.
that they haven't shown in either of the
Because
videos
actual dough
though is when you get
it's
to the cash
amazingly
register
pillowy
and you
then
like keep
fried on
walking,
the outside
there's
and
actually you
crispy.
can see the room where they're powdering all of the beignets.
Okay, I get it.
And when I
get
remember
why
it,
there's
it
so
was
much
just
powdered sugar, though,
absolutely
definitely.
covered in powdered sugar. Like it was insane. The whole
I'm
room.
sure everybody.
The whole room was just
if you look
coated
around,
in a
everybody
layer of
has a
powdered sugar.
Powdered sugar mustache. Yeah, but this is not just any coffee. This is coffee with chicory. And so as the story goes, coffee was first brought to New
Okay.
Orleans by the French. But at some point throughout history, there was a coffee shortage.
Now you can eat the room,
And
start
so
licking the room.
They ran out of coffee. And so they started using these chicory wood chips. I'm not totally sure. It has a bit of a similar kind of taste, a dark kind of
Okay.
roasted, fruity flavor, similar to coffee. And so they started substituting chicory.
Sounds
for
like someone could
coffee
make
until today.
angels?
When they
So you're
serve,
just
I
saying
think now
angels?
it's a
Was that supposed to be
combination
angels?
between real coffee beans and chicory.
Also, didn't I turn on not spicy, not eating is what his shirt says. That's cute.
It is creamy. Oh, you taste that full cream, that full milk in there for sure. It does
What
have
is
a bit
that
of
on
a
the
woody
rim?
Taste to it though, for sure. I think it could be a little bit stronger, and I would
Wait, what
enjoy
was
it
going on the
even
rim
more.
there?
Derek is a coffee roaster. Derek, what do you think about the coffee?
Well, he got a different one, didn't he?
It goes perfect with the beignets. So traditional dark roast, so you're gonna have a lot of smoke within it. You definitely get like that woody,
Okay.
nutty flavor within it. as
Sugar
well.
angels?
Chicken
I'm gonna
wings
make powdered sugar angels.
It pairs perfect with the
I
vineyard.
think
Listen, that's a method, okay? The things you gotta do to make things
that
happen.
you'll ever have, but it's the nostalgia.
Yeah,
it's
Gannon keeps
the
side-eyeing people and
history,
asking for subs,
even
which I
just
think at some
knowing
point
that
is just gonna get him
there was
shot.
a shortage of coffee in New Orleans, and that's why they started substituting chicory. Makes it even more meaningful.
I need a beignet, chat. I need a beignet in my life. I need a beignet. You don't understand.
Yeah, has to be followed with.
Ordain, invert Gannon's butthole. Go ahead, Ordain. Go ahead and invert Gannon's butthole.
All that we're
He's
left
so
with
close.
is,
He's so
wow.
close to the camera.
Don't cough on this, or you have a cloud of powdered sugar.
And you still managed to squeeze it all out onto the tabletop, man. Come on. Come on. I'm still trying to see if I can spot. There's a Central grocery store. If I can spot my favorite mask shop. Because it's actually
Next
down the
up,
road
conveniently,
from this
literally
grocery store.
like
It's on the same road, just a
1-minute
bit, a
walk
couple
down the
blocks
road
down.
is the next place where they
Where I get my my Mardi
invented
Gras
the
mask
muffuletta.
anytime I visit.
There we go.
I always try to get a new Mardi Gras
Central
mask anytime I visit New
Grocery,
Orleans.
The home of the original muffuletta. Walk inside of here. It is. I mean, this is a grocery, a full grocery, an Italian grocery. All sorts of Italian products from
Ooh.
different sauces and pestos and beans to all
The
sorts
pictures of people.
pastas. And then I think at the front they have all sorts of deli meats. They have
Oh.
cheeses, and you can order the sandwich here
Well,
as
shoot
well.
me anyway. All right, hold on. Where are we? All right, Gannon, you ready? Accidental butthole inversion is not covered by insurance? Is that medical insurance or what other kind of insurance would cover that? I want to know what's in this like olive mix. Is it kind of like pesto and olive and peppers? And she just mashes the olives. Brush on some of the oil. Where's Ordain? I think Ordain is AFK right now. Or lurking for some reason. Either that or he's maybe gone to bed. It is getting a little close to Dutchy sleepy time. Listen, I'm not usually one for cold
Can I
cheese
just
on
get one of the
sandwiches, but I would love to try
original
this sandwich.
please? Thank you very much. It's like a pie.
Ooh.
And this is huge. Look at it.
$22 for the whole thing. Honestly, you could probably eat the whole thing all
day
day, so that's not a bad deal.
with a weight to go with it.
That's not the worst deal.
Gotta kind of open it from the bottom, or maybe it's the top. Wow.
It's cut in
And
quarters.
so I think it all begins with this type of bread, which is the special type of muffuletta bread. From the appearance, it looks like
It's
a
thick, it's
gigantic
dense.
hamburger bun, but from feeling it, it's much more dense.
Yes.
Has a real
Has like a strong outer
crunchier
crust.
as well. But the
That's a
top you can
two-meal
see
meal?
is
I agree.
Full of sesame
I agree.
seeds as well. Look at the layers of it. The thickness
I wonder
of
what the
that
olive
bread.
part tastes like.
I love you can
I'm
see
gonna-
like the fresh olive oil as well.
Yeah, and I love how there's full olives just sliced and packed.
More
within
like
that sandwich.
crushed. Does she
Cheers.
kind of? We did
Muffuletta,
just see her
the
kind of crush it with her
original from
fingers.
1906.
Okay. Look at the old lady smiling in the background. You see her down the bar.
Step. Totally make it.
Meredith. Oh, okay. Sorry.
As well as
Let me
the,
just.
the olive oil from the preservation
right.
of the olives. I think that
All
just
right.
soak into the bread.
I think I nailed that one. I think I nailed that one.
Get that salty flavor from the
I want this burger. This isn't a burger. This is a sandwich. This is a good sandwich. Muffuletta sandwich.
I'm amazed at like how
An unclicked Cuban.
dense yet
I can see
still
that.
incredibly moist.
I can see that. It looks like it uses like
Kinda oily, but,
salami, and there was another kind of
like,
meat in there that I wasn't
folds-
sure of.
Folds up.
Yeah.
And then the
Ham?
the meat,
Ham, maybe?
the salami, the ham, the provolone,
Sandwich.
the cheese.
Sandwich.
It all is like so neatly stacked.
Yes.
Oh, he's nibbling off the extra meat off the back. I was like, what are you going in for?
Oh yeah, there you can see that layer of
Is
olives.
that
That's
a
what's
garlic
coloring
clove?
This entire sandwich, but the green olives specifically. There are pickled peppers in there, I believe. Some carrots, and you just see the
Carrots?
herbaceous mixture in there as well.
What is the? I
plus
think that
olive
big
oil.
white thing. It looks almost like a garlic, but I'm not 100% sure. What is the har? Har?
No wonder they cut it in quarters, though. Although it would be cool.
It was an olive. It is basically an olive salad. I just want to know what everything that's in
I'm
it.
sure if you ate one of these yourself, though, you would need a nap. If you ate a whole one yourself.
If you eat the whole one yourself in one meal, you definitely need a nap. That sandwich gonna put you out, boy. That sandwich gonna put you out. Oh my god, this is really, yeah, too close.
Blown away and absolutely shocked, to be quite honest.
Listen, I take big bites, but I'm not
There's no
shoving it in my mouth level big bites.
Because it's too simple of ingredients, but it's like simple ingredients paired well together.
Okay, we got 5 minutes until the ad break.
You can't beat it.
I want to be in America so bad. The thing is you say that. Now there's good places like this, but then when you stay there like long term or you're here longer, it's gonna get worse, Chris. It's gonna lose its novelty.
Your sandwich with olive oil.
He's gonna lose its novelty so fast.
And garlic and all of those herbs.
Why are you so
From
close?
here, maybe we'll walk around a little
Zoom
bit,
out.
and then
Zoom
we'll go to the next
out.
place to continue eating.
He knows his camera can like zoom out further than its actual position, right? I'm trying to see if I recognize any of the places. Go back. Fuck you. Fuck you, go back. He immediately recognizes the place. Say hi to Lafitte's, kids. This is Lafitte's blacksmith shop. It's the it's the oldest bar in the United States. The oldest still standing bar. It's a pretty neat place. I like it. They have a voodoo margarita inside. It's like a purple margarita. So good. It's so good.
And
Bourbon Street.
Welcome to Bourbon Street. This is for sure one of the most famous streets in
They're
New
on the far
Orleans,
end.
The most famous streets.
They're on the eastern end of
in
Bourbon
the French
Street.
Quarter, and it's especially
Because the
known
eastern
for
is basically where all the
its
residential
nightlife,
longhouses and
although
stuff
I'm here
are.
right in the middle of the day, so it's not too busy. It's actually very quiet. But if you come here in
History.
the evening, it's just walking.
Yeah, it is not the
only.
oldest bar in the world. I promise you that. It is the
I'm
oldest
just
in the
enjoying
U.S.
this walk around the French Quarter because of the architecture, the
Mr. Kimmy
I love
Rose, thank you for the follow.
balconies,
Welcome
the
in.
Wrought iron, the beauty.
How are you doing?
The character. It's so cool.
It is. It feels very strange to be in the French Quarter and see everything and just be like, feel like you've fallen in love with it. I wanted to move to New Orleans for the longest time. I almost got an apartment that actually overlooked one of the most haunted places in the French Quarter.
Coop's Place.
Oh,
They
we're back at Coop's.
specialize in both Creole and
I'm
Cajun
doing good.
food.
How are you?
The only thing about this place is that I'm not sure how. I guess they are pretty strict, but it is a bit of a bar at the same time as a restaurant. Their food is really good.
Yeah, I think
but
they're
it is a
walking
bar
around
as
with the
well,
other
so
guy's
only
son.
says big sign on the front
So-
door that says you must be 21 years or older to enter. I'm especially excited to eat their rabbit sausage jambalaya.
Oh, that's what it was. It was the jambalaya special and then the
Now
chicken
we
and
know
red
why it's
beans.
21 and over. It is really kind of like a tavern. It's a tavern, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really bar.
Oh my god.
oriented.
Oh my god, they're so smart. Oh my god. Hold on. No. Give me the focus back. They've got all the Tabasco sauces and not a fucking Frank's Red Hot in sight. I could kiss them.
So unfortunately, we got into Coop's Place. They immediately said no filming, and so we decided to get it for takeaway.
I was gonna say that's why they were outside.
Oh man, yeah. You popped open that etouffee, and that smells incredible.
Oh, okra,
We were
right
gonna
in
do a
it.
little bit
Oh
of,
shit.
I mean, a talk. About
Where's the empty
differences
ketchup bottle?
between
Shaking my head.
Cajun
It has to be
and
empty
Creole.
or it's
While
not
we were
real.
sitting in Coop's Place, but actually this is even better, sitting here in the plaza.
I've never had
So
jambalaya
really,
that had rabbit.
For the most part, New Orleans would be more considered the
Is it
heart
raining?
of
It looks like it's
Creole
kind of raining a little
cuisine,
bit.
whereas
Unless that was the water
Lafayette
fountain
would be
spraying
considered
water somewhere.
Cajun country, Arcadian. And
Yeah, the
what
Arcadians.
exactly
My family was
Derek
Arcadian.
is going to share with us really some of the key differences
My
between
family was part of the first group of
Cajun and
Arcadians
Creole
that came from Canada to Louisiana.
ethnic perspective.
Yeah, so historically, ethnically, like it's speaking in really general terms, Creole is predominantly your African, like West African, along with Spanish influence, kind of blending and mixing together. And in Cajuns, they are the French Canadians that came down.
There you go.
And started to settle different parts of Louisiana as
Also,
well.
that dog
You
over
know,
there. I see you. I see the
historically,
dog
like,
tail.
Louisiana is just an interesting place. Originally
Ordain's
settled by the
back.
French,
All right, Ordained, you need
then
to
bought out by
invert
the
Ganon.
Spanish, and then Louisiana
You need to
purchased
invert
everything,
Ganon's butthole.
and, the US
Sorry, I don't
took
make the
over as
rules.
well. Slave trade was part of a big
It's time
part
to
of it.
invert Ganon's
So
butthole.
during transatlantic slave trade, you had tons of Africans that were being
What?
brought
You
over
heard
and
me,
came
do it.
over, and then
Make it so.
as freedom and everything else happened, the blending of the cultures took place. So yeah, it is.
Listen, I let you run around doing all the shenanigans. You need to do a little something for me. From taking a shower? Yeah, I know.
Love it, I love it.
Invert his
Two different
butthole.
dishes, and just from the surface.
Also,
I know
it looks
one
like
of
they
the
got like a
main
lot
ingredient
smaller
differences,
portions than Babish did. Wasn't
Creole
his
often
bigger?
uses tomatoes, whereas Cajun often doesn't use tomatoes. So we got an etouffee, which is a seafood stew. There's shrimp in there. There's crawfish. There's tomatoes.
Wait,
in there.
weren't y'all
there's
supposed to get
okra
the
in there.
jambalaya?
And there's so much stew over that I believe there's rice at the bottom, but the rice is not even visible. Etouffee?
Etouffee's so fucking good, dude. Etouffee's so I'm getting etouffee today. Fuck it, I'm getting etouffee today. So it shall be. Arcadian. Yeah. Arcadian.
Oh.
Greek round? Not that Arcadian.
But it's the flavor
Not that
of
Arcadian. The
crawfish
French-Canadian
that-
Arcadians.
So I mean, shrimp and crawfish.
That essentially came down to Louisiana and became the white Cajun. But let me also, it's commercial time, kids. I need to run to the bathroom, so we're gonna give you the Gardic phone on stream, and I will be back in a couple minutes. Please do not burn anything down while I am gone. Okie dokie. What did I miss? Who died? Did we finally invert Ganon's anus? Has Ganon's anus been inverted properly? What's our problem? All right. Turn it down just a bit more. Just a bit more. There we go. Oh, come on!
Making the mother of all omelets here, Jack. Can't spread over every egg.
Ganon is now pooping like a worm. Boss, thanks, Grins. Pooping like a worm. All right, but can you make him swim with the fishes? What is that thing supposed to be? A hand towel? Knife block? Reaper? Grim Reaper? Is that the Grim Reaper? Candy cane. Vase. Vase. How do you spell bicep? Bicep. Tricep? Damn it. Damn it. Poopin' fartin'. Who's poopin' fartin'? Wait, I don't like that. I don't like that. We're going back. We're going back. Show me this goddamn jambalaya again. Well, this is the etouffee. I want to see the jambalaya.
The crawfish, I think the crawfish is coming through more than the shrimp flavor.
Agreed.
Well, yeah, that's because crawfish usually has a stronger taste than shrimp.
That is good.
It's got some kick.
Okay, should we
Just
dig
say,
into the
listen,
jambalaya?
listen, you can't.
So there's rabbit in there, as
Etouffee
well
is so
as
goddamn
sausage.
good. And
then the
inverting
jambalaya,
buttholes, we're only doing it
especially in
once.
New Orleans, a lot
Do
of
not
things
make this
are
a regular
mixed now
thing.
as well, right?
Yes.
A lot of restaurants do serve a combination of
Of the
Cajun
Smiling
Creole.
Dead? I did not say we were going to
Additionally, jambalaya
submit
is
you.
also kind of
I said we were going to throw you into the ocean and watch you sink to the bottom.
Yeah.
You're just going to be tied to cement blocks.
Derek had the first bite of that jambalaya.
Ain't no way would the Smiling Dead let you in.
No words. No words.
Uh-oh.
Ooh.
Oh, man.
Hey,
A big
why
chunk
do you
of
keep
jambalaya
taking
out of
such big
pants.
bites, dude? I thought I took big bites. That's insane. Why do you eat like that?
Salty.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Salty. Smoky.
You also just like, I'm pretty sure he dropped a chunk onto his pants.
I thought it was going to be a little bit mushy because it looks kind of thick. It almost looks like a rice porridge, actually. But
I mean, that usually
is
happens
so
a bit
good.
because of the
rabbit
rice
is just
starch and
there,
stuff.
like,
Because in this case, when you're
melted
making this,
into
you
the
don't wash the
entire
rice.
Porridge like jambalaya.
Pour the rice right on in. Right on in, baby.
Somehow, like
I think
the
that
wrap
smokiness,
reminds
I mean
me
that-
of like it reminds me
Anime,
That
Lord of Mysteries.
smokiness.
Every single one of you should go watch Lord of Mysteries. It's all currently 8 episodes. Thank you for self-care, idiots.
The etouffee is good. But the jambalaya is where it's at.
I'm shocked.
Yo, the music.
The depth of flavor when it comes
Yo,
to
the music.
Like typically other places around the country, you'll get jambalaya and it's like, okay, whatever.
Why are you digging out of each other's? Those look like the same thing.
You take a
That's
bite,
still the etouffee.
swallow to everything, and you're still tasting and tasting and tasting, like long after the actual bite. And it is.
Yeah.
Okay, that is the
Actually,
jambalaya. Never mind.
the
Never mind. Carry
aftertaste is
on.
incredible. Like it just lingers on your tongue, the smokiness.
It does. Oh.
This one, there's so many different meats and proteins in here too. The sausage, the rabbit, shrimp,
Chats.
crawfish.
Chat, why do we keep doing food? Today's Thursday. We're supposed to do like spooky or
It's all about
annoying
that
things
jambalaya.
today.
just wanna take a nap.
It's not supposed to be a food day. How did you get me here?
A grain of rice.
That went down really easily. I think we could eat like 5 of these.
Oh, for sure. That's the effect
we
of
weren't
jambalaya,
going on
baby.
a full
That's
food
why you
tour.
make a whole pot of that
I think
bitch.
we would eat 5 of these if we weren't going on a full food
Just
tour.
the rectal prolapse? Correct, but forcibly done so.
Literally on the last bite, it just started downpouring kind of out of nowhere,
Yeah, that sounds like New Orleans.
hovering under this tree until it gets. Whoa, we might need to make a run for it.
I was gonna say, yeah, that's New Orleans. That's what happened while I was there. Actually, hold on. When did they make this? 3 years ago? Okay, not even close. Not even close. It would have been a funny coincidence if they were there at the same time I was. Oh? A wizard without morals should worry the universe? Oh
Still raining,
no.
but we decided to make a run for it.
I mean, what other
And,
trope
well,
is there
because the place is
besides
pretty
evil
close, we're going
wizard?
to that place right across the corner there. It is
Very
a
smart.
hole-in-the-wall grocer. It's an old place. I know it's a 24-hour place. We're definitely
Really?
going to have a po' boy over there and maybe see what else
I
they have
don't think I remember
to
seeing this
continue
place. Maybe I
with
just
this
missed
food
it.
tour today. Here, open this. Oh. I'm beginning to think that some of the best food in New Orleans
There's
comes
going to be a
from
hole in the wall, don't you know?
grocery stores. The back of
What is
little
spooky food?
supermarkets.
Well,
Yep.
anytime we look up spooky food, we just end up with white women
gotta
trying
go
to make
sideways.
Halloween desserts. And you can usually guess how that goes.
Not around the handles. I can't do it.
A little grocery store, everything from popcorn to instant coffee are available. If you need a shaver, if you need
Oh?
some coffee filters, if you need some
Just
duct
quick
tape, it's
essentials.
all
And
available
beer,
there.
of
And then
course,
towards the
beer
back,
over your
there's actually a
shoulder.
little line. All the way towards the back is the deli sandwich counter shop where you
All
make
right,
your
I'm very
order.
curious to
Just
see what the
enough
po'
space to
boys that
make
come
a
out of this
line.
place are like.
That's their distinguishing.
All
factor
that
is the wild
jazz.
sauce.
Well, that's not a po'
So we're gonna
boy.
get all that jazz, a medley of grilled ham, turkey, and shrimp. Swiss
Wow,
American grilled tomatoes, grilled mushrooms, tomatoes, French
A
bread.
bun or
wow
slice?
sauce. Thank you very much.
Slice?
Wow.
Hey, I like your Caesar's dressing video.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. There it is. Oh, it's heavy. It's already
Ooh.
leaking a little bit.
I hate that from the waist up shot he
I
just
think one
did.
of the
I
great things
totally
about
missed
this
it.
place
I
is
think.
there's like no extra space to maneuver, to move, to even
Go on,
stand,
get!
even when you're waiting for your order.
This
You're
is
just
this is a
kinda
good small grocery store. Hey, there's even
like
shrimp
putting
boil
your
in there.
face into
God
some
damn.
mayonnaise. It's awesome.
I saw the shrimp boil in the back.
And then of course no place to eat at all. It's only takeaway.
Well, duh, it's a
Back
grocery
outside
store.
here. Oh, where it is still raining.
Ooh.
It's
Okay.
always a good sign when the paper is
Soggy.
transparent. Oh, that's the wow sauce. The wow sauce
Sloppy.
has completely saturated
How appropriate for you.
Listen,
two
a good
layers
sandwich.
of the paper.
A good
Oh, look at
sandwich
that.
should be at least a little sloppy.
Oh, all the mushrooms, the cheese. There's shrimp in there too.
Wait, was there
It's
shrimp in
so
there?
Saucy.
I thought it was like a turkey sandwich
That
thing.
is sloppy
Want some of the paper?
I thought it was a turkey
juicy.
sandwich.
and oozing. It might be
What you see
a
versus
dangerous
what you
move
get?
to try to open it, but I have to see
I don't know, this
everything
is looking
that's
pretty
inside
fucking
so
good.
badly. So we're gonna risk the opening of the all that
I
jazz.
take back what I said.
Oh,
This is
boy.
a good sandwich. Oh, the
Look at
cheese.
that. The key component is the wow sauce. They literally call it the wow sauce.
What is the wow
which
sauce?
is just smothered into everything. It's so juicy, it's so wet, and yet it holds its shape. And the
Perfect.
bun,
That's a good
the loaf
sandwich.
Is so soft.
The right amount of sauce
Cheers.
and the right amount of cheese. Oh shit! I dropped my chapstick and hit spacebar. Oh, that's true. You're right, Colin. You were absolutely right. I hate that. I hate having to like pick paper out of a sandwich.
Oh,
What is it, Gannon? What are we yelling about?
You guys waiting to go back?
No, we're good. Just watching them enjoy that.
oh, thank you, thank you.
That's also good looking
Awesomely
bread.
tasty, because it's like the best of everything combined into a single sandwich.
I see the turkey
melted
slices. I
cheese
see the
and
mushrooms.
Oozing,
There's
sticky
tomatoes. I
wow
know that's
sauce
in there.
all over the place.
I wouldn't know what that wow sauce is made of. It's almost like a honey mustard.
All right, this is good to know.
And
I got
mayonnaise at the
got
same
places to
time.
go to
Almost
next
in
time I go to New
Italy at the
Orleans.
same time, too.
Hey! Hey! We're going to New Orleans after the United States inevitably collapses.
It's so
The paper
good.
adds flavor? No, the fuck it doesn't.
So rich.
I will never understand
still-
people that I've seen that like take bites out of their styrofoam
connected?
cups, or even just like fucking eat paper.
The highest
That shit is
concentration
so
of melted
disgusting.
cheese you could possibly have in a single loaf
Spooky
of bread.
video suggestion, Gannon.
This is much different. This is much different than some of the traditional po' boys that you'll find around.
Explain.
The cities throughout the state.
What is
This
it?
Much different. So
Yeah.
The free state of New Orleans. Listen, I could
it's
dream.
at least worth trying once.
It becomes
Because
just
it
a
is
city
so
state in the middle of its swamp.
Especially that sauce.
I can see that.
Still shocked.
I can see that. Could work. Could work as a fishing city state.
It's so much going on. It's so rich.
The fly.
It's so many contrasting things like
Now get on my sandwich, fly.
cheese and American cheese and mayonnaise, and yet somehow
The one time he
oddly
puts the
just
camera
all
down, it's
fits
not in front of his
together in this
face, and he's finally stepped away from
warm,
it, and he walks towards
cozy,
it.
sticky, soggy, oozy, sloppy, messy po' boy, and it is
Good.
amazing.
Good. That's a good po' boy. If I eat a po' boy and the shrimp or the crawfish does not fall out of it at some point, that po' boy was not good enough. Oh, I hate these. I hate these fucking fences with locks on them. Steamboat. Steamboat. Oh. I think that this video has been recommended to me, but we've
For
gotten
our
sucked into
next
food today, and we're
and
3 hours
is,
in.
It's going to be an amazing meal. It's
So
one of the
this is our
most
topic for the
highly
day.
regarded
This is what it is. This is what it's
in the
become,
French
chat.
Quarter of New Orleans.
Oh.
They have a little bit of dress code, so it's time to.
They have a dress code,
up
so you put
for
on
our
a
next meal.
short sleeve, comfy button up.
All right, let's go.
Hey, it's the Hard Rock. I never actually saw the Hard Rock while I was there. Marion doesn't like private property. Plague, do you want my honest answer? Plague, do you want my honest answer? Yeah, he only buttoned one button. Yeah, he buttoned the rest.
In the back room, I guess. Maybe in the front room you have to have a dress coat, a suit coat, which I wasn't. But we're at lunch, so it doesn't.
Wow,
Anyways,
you got put in the
happy
second
to
class
sit in the back
dining room.
and it is like it's a little more relaxed. back here,
Man,
actually. The front room was
man.
pretty
Dress
intense,
code
yeah.
collared shirt, kind of a low
Thank you very
bar.
much. Family cheers.
I don't-
Thank you, Andrew. Andrew offered to take our photo. Cheers. Thank you, Andrew.
Goofy.
For taking our
Goofy.
photo.
Very awkward. Very awkward. Please and thank you. I didn't like that.
That was Andrew on the video camera. Thank you, Andrew.
Jazz Fest, October 10th.
Jazz Fest.
Thank you very much.
This restaurant has been here since 1905.
So the food is
Oh.
especially French Creole.
Forgot to pack a 3-piece
With,
suit. That's what he said. That's what he said. Yeah.
Seafood.
Being that fancy, especially when you're traveling, is kind of hard.
Late 1800s, early 1900s.
Unless like the whole purpose is to be dressed nice while you're there.
They come from France. They
Like my dad used to have to do that when we were kids. He was a pilot, so he would have like, specific carry-on that he would bring that was for his
Thank
suits. Ooh, okay, that just looks like yum yum shrimp.
Thank you.
With like some kind of like chili-based shrimp.
interrupt you with that. You might need to.
Thank you very much. Oh, you pour it in.
She just dumps it for him.
Nice.
But wait, what's the point then if you're just
Very
gonna
much.
dump it?
All right. The
that an
appetizers
oyster?
have come. She just brought the
Is that an
seafood
etouffee
gumbo.
with-
The shrimp
Oh, okay,
boulgogne
seafood gumbo.
is extremely famous here. One of the most famous dishes that they popularized at Galatoire's. Another thing that I can't wait to try is the oysters Rockefeller, which were actually invented at a restaurant
That-
nearby called Antoine's.
Isn't
but they
oysters
also
Rockefeller
serve very good
with cheese?
oysters Rockefeller here that I couldn't wait to try too. They're
Hold
so
on.
bright.
Hold on. I thought oysters Rockefeller was with cheese. Oh, it is green. Oh, no, theirs is just very green. Like, this is herbs, cheese, and like a bunch of other stuff. I didn't expect it to look like this.
Green. An oyster on the bottom of that with a combination of spinach and herb mixture.
Okay, I think this place went a little over the top with the spinach.
Kind of crispy on the top, but kind of fluffy and foamy and herbaceous and very green.
Okay.
Bright green. I don't know if you're supposed to.
If
shot
I
it or
ordered
supposed
oysters
to shrimp it.
Rockefeller, honestly though, my first thought would not be this. I would expect it to be
Let's shot it. Okay.
more. That is such a big oyster to take in one bite, dude.
I definitely did not get it all.
Damn.
Yeah.
It can be green. True. Apparently it can be green.
Wow.
I've always wanted to try oysters Rockefeller.
Okay. Probably should spoon that. I'm guessing. But there's more than one.
Now I'm getting curious if the oyster place in my town has oysters Rockefeller.
That is unique.
Warm and homey is what comes to mind when I taste it.
Probably expensive as
tastes
shit.
like a-
Hold on.
Puree of.
Because the oysters
It is a
by
puree
themselves
of
are
herbs
expensive as
and
hell,
spinach.
so.
Almost foamy in texture.
I see that shout out, Grins.
Nice muscle and
I
oyster
see that shout out.
And melt in your mouth.
Elvis, thank you for the follow. Welcome in.
Totally different from
I
any
see
other
your
oyster
ass.
dish that
I see your
I've ever had,
ass.
I think. Tam and Ying on your first oyster Rockefeller.
Man can't shoot an oyster week. I mean, these are pretty big oysters. Like, if it was more of a normal size oyster,
No, but it's good. It's amazing, right?
these are like high quality oysters.
That puree. Whoa. Wait, can you lift
Oh.
that? Wow. I love the bright.
Yeah,
green
they
color.
went with like a very, very green
Can I hit the remoulade with some lemon?
remoulade,
right?
remoulade. Hold on, I gotta know. I gotta know. So I'm looking at the cost of.
Derek?
Okay, it's $4 each per oyster, which means a half a dozen oysters, open-faced oysters,
But it's not overpowering.
would be fucking $24.
Kind of like a combination of cocktail sauce and. It tastes like cocktail shrimp. But
Okay.
With
Let
the
me see,
cocktail
do they
sauce and
have-
horseradish all mixed in and with a nuttiness.
Something
Very
else.
refreshing.
It's got horseradish.
Because I kind of want to look into the insides of it.
Tastes really fresh.
For this one, I will cut it in half with a. Look at the bright interior green. Look how green.
Okay.
How bright popping green.
Taken to
it
do
is.
Cascadia
That's
after
amazing.
America becomes a PvP
And the melty
zone.
oyster on the bottom.
Not the PvP zone.
Kind of do have to eat it all in one bite, whether you shot it or.
Yeah, they don't tend to split pretty well.
Because otherwise, it kind of doesn't come apart.
But I would say, yeah, but it's
But
Oysters Rockefeller. That was
2 thumbs up.
amazing. Next up for gumbo, one of the ultimate of all Louisiana
Seafood gumbo,
dishes.
baby.
And this is a seafood gumbo. You can see there's whole oysters in there. There's shrimp, beautifully thick from the roux. And roux is the combination of fat and flour used to thicken and to
okay,
flavor
yeah, they don't
a
have
gumbo
an
like
oyster
this, I believe,
Rockefeller. A place that's named for its oysters, not having anything besides just raw oysters for its oyster dishes is kind of crazy.
right? Wow, yeah.
In all the right ways.
Kind of crazy.
Seafood is fresh.
Oh, that shrimp. It almost
They do
just
apparently, though, have
feels
three
like crab.
kinds of
It's
fucking
that
caviar
creamy.
on the menu.
It's so
A $95
thick
caviar, a $135
heavy.
caviar, and a $185 caviar. That's ridiculous.
the crab flavor in that gumbo.
Insane.
unmistakable.
Insane.
Andrew,
Would be there's an old Cascadia.
Thank
Are you
you.
talking about fairies? In terms of Cascadia?
Carabini Vaughn
wow.
and trout on the menu.
Fish? Fish?
Wow.
With
Nice.
shaved almonds?
That looks amazing.
Shaved and roasted almonds?
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you. Can establish anything I can
Oh. Oh no.
Thank you very much.
Wow, those are those look almost like whole fillets. It's a pretty decent looking steak. I will give them credit for that. That's a pretty decent looking steak.
Derek and I each got a fish dish. I got the sautéed redfish.
Sautéed?
with,
Did he really
a
say
sauce made
sautéed?
From crab
Caviar's overrated.
and
I agree.
mushroom.
I completely
And then
agree.
Derek got the
Caviar is overrated
fried
and overpriced.
Trout
Deep fried trout with
covered in a.
almond.
Yeah, it's covered in a
Ooh.
mountain of almondine. Oh man, I can't wait. I love.
I was gonna say that fish looks awesome.
Firm this redfish is. It's so firm.
Fuck, I'm hungry, chat. Why did you do this to me today? Today of all days, on Thursday, my last stream day of the week.
With butter.
Old
mushrooms,
Cascadia is just Oregon, Washington, and lower West Coast Canada. Where's New Cascadia? Where's New Cascadia? This is important.
That sear.
Again, this dude
butteriness
takes
of it.
massive
The
bites.
sauce with crab with mushrooms, so good. Cooked perfectly.
Why?
I'm thinking the same thing for the trout. Like,
Just fish eggs? Why aren't chicken eggs?
I don't
Because
know
they
how
come out a
they
lot
cook this
faster.
dish well, but
Chicken eggs can
it's like,
drop.
especially
Chickens
when
can
you fry
potentially
it,
drop
it's like
one
cooked
egg a
to
day with the ones that we've bred to do that.
Like flake soft,
While
easily,
fish only breed once a year.
perfectly cooked. I've hit the wall.
Oh, hit the wall. So full.
Moving
Is
slower.
Project Cascadia? I don't know what that means.
Maybe I can take another bite.
But yeah, this is the main difference between fish eggs and chicken
This is
eggs.
the last meal.
Also, hold on a second. Chat, I have a thing for you. A pop quiz thing for you. Do you know the number of percentages of animals, or birds specifically, percentage of birds that are chickens? Do you know the percentage of birds, of all birds on the planet, that are chickens? Just any kind of species of chicken. I want to see if anybody knows and see how many people are paying attention. 27%, 56%, too many, 60%. 60% of all birds on the planet are chickens because we bred them that much. Normally they'd probably be less than 5%. They would be less than 5% if we hadn't bred them to what they are today. I mean, 56 is a pretty good guess. I honestly thought you were all gonna guess like really low. So like beef being like 85% is crazy. Tibet ordained as New Mojave casinos? Oh my god. No.
It is all in one day. And it is
I mean,
much, like it's not even 6 o'clock yet. Look at this.
hit the wall at 6 o'clock. All right, have yourself a drink and bounce back. We'll get you another po' boy at like 10. Trust me, you'll want that extra po' boy. God damn it, y'all can't start making Fallout references. I don't know enough about Fallout, nor care enough about Fallout. That bite is too fucking big! Stop! Why do you eat like an animal? No wonder they put you in the back room. That was mean, I'm sorry.
The entire meal was excellent. I think my favorite part, though.
Are you sure it's satisfying? You inhaled it in 4 bites. Why?
Wow.
Content brand? I guess? I don't know.
Brandy, Cointreau, orange, cinnamon stick, and clove.
Wow, that smells amazing.
So you've made an old fashioned.
Right.
You've overcomplicated an old fashioned?
Check this out.
Wow. On fire.
What's the point?
That's very cool.
Where's this gonna go?
Right, and then you want to keep it. You don't want to do it too long because you don't
Okay.
want to burn off all the alcohol, and then you wouldn't have any alcohol in the
Okay.
coffee. So now we're going to add the coffee. Put out the
Okay,
coffee.
so is this gonna be a sauce
Okay.
for a dessert that's coming out?
Wow.
Oops, still on fire.
Okay. Now it's a virgin old fashioned? Yep. No, I think this is... She said it's coffee,
That's awesome.
What coffee do you?
but... Oh, just nighttime coffee with brandy? I mean, sure.
You can try
Alright.
get you some sugar. You might want to put a little sugar in just like any other
Alright.
coffee.
Cafe Brulot. Very cool.
Okay.
That's so awesome. Ignited on
Coffee and
fire.
brandy,
Play
basically.
with it. Something I've never had before.
They're burning my
Have you had this
alcohol!
before, Dirk?
It's fine, it's fine.
Interesting to try it.
I love the
The
show.
second class floor with no other customers, with barely any, and they're all far away. Yep.
Sugar?
Precisely.
That can barely fit back here. There we go.
I also don't know any Fallout. Oh. Fancy hot toddy? Kind of, yeah. You're actually kind of close.
Wow.
Although this is coffee and brandy, which I don't think a toddy has any coffee in it.
Very.
Good night, ordained. Sleep well.
Very,
Have a good night. Put the sword down.
It's like a spiced punch almost.
Can you overcook a drink is not a question I would normally ask. Brophy? Not brophy.
Apple cider, or it's almost apple cider or the eggnog.
Yeah.
Maybe because of the spices, because of the cinnamon, because of the clove. It almost has an eggnog.
The
taste to it,
cinnamon,
but I
clove,
mean,
and orange?
with coffee. It's almost a combination of it's cidery, very cidery, but then with coffee as the base.
It reminds me of an apple cider.
I figured it would just give kind of
It's a cider, spice cider.
Yep.
a better
It's spice-
experience
like
to
spice
a
cider.
coffee. I thought that was also just like a plain black
Very
roast.
festive, very aromatic.
Also, look at these nerds. These nerds stealing another table next to them
Yeah.
so that they
Maybe
could
because
have
of
their
the
little
sweetness of
like
the
goofy
brandy.
talk show moments.
It's not like, it's not overly like in your face.
Perfect ending.
Oh my god,
to an
Jesus,
amazing
jump scare.
meal.
Holy shit. Wait, how much was that?
In your face.
Perfect ending
$40 to $60 per person.
to an amazing meal.
Okay, they did eat kind of a lot of food, but I feel like that wasn't a fair comparison considering he ate like an additional 2 dishes.
And a huge
Oh, there's
thank
Felix
you
is.
to Jennifer and Andrew for taking great care
Oh, this
of
is
us.
right on Bourbon
Thank you for
Street.
the
How did I
amazing
miss
service,
this before?
Amazing service, very high quality.
Chat, remind me, if we
very
plan a
fancy
trip to New
restaurant.
Orleans with Faye and Sai, we're all having to bring fancy clothes. We're gonna have to bring fancy clothes because we're going to fancy places.
And Galatoire's is actually right on Bourbon Street.
White man jump scare! Except he was red. He was really red in that scene for some reason. Brennan's.
We weren't sure if we were gonna pull this off because we weren't sure it was possible, but it was just like one street down.
Is this the next day?
and Right over.
No, you're
So we
still
had
wearing
to
the same
stop
clothes.
here, a place called
You just said you
Brennan's
were full.
for one fast dessert to end this tour.
Oh, okay, dessert.
The epitome of New Orleans, invented here.
This is gonna be the Banana Foster, isn't it? Yeah.
They invented it at Brennan's. Right on a birthday celebration.
Okay, that better be a fat man singing.
Have you had bananas Fosters before? Yeah?
Oh boy.
Have
Oh
never
boy.
here, first time. Yep.
They have like a whole stand for it. That's crazy.
We're excited.
Yes. Bananas Fosters was invented here at Brennan's in 1951.
That's
So
brown
we
sugar?
have brown sugar, a dash of cinnamon, some butter. I have banana liqueur.
Okay, to caramelize.
We're going to go ahead and caramelize this.
Fantastic. I've never got to have bananas Foster either. A regular pizza, 50 hot wings.
This was created last
50?
minute for a party for a good friend of the Brennan's family, Mr. Richard Foster.
Okay.
I need that meme of the picture of the person like I absolutely destroyed those wings, and it looks like they basically just smacked their lips against it.
He sets everything up in his restaurant and decides to tell Ella Brennan, his baby sister, who was the general manager at the time of
Okay.
this party, and that he needs a dessert, something special, something that hasn't been done before, something that would wow the crowds.
Would it wow
And so she
them?
says, absolutely, give me a few
Or
days
is it
to
entirely
prepare
because they
something
cook it in
really
front of
beautiful.
you?
And he says, well, no, ma'am, you don't have a few days because people are going to be here in a few hours. Very frustrating. So she gets right to work. She reaches right into her own
Bananas my weakness? What do you mean bananas your weakness? I love bananas. Granted, if I have too many bananas at once, my heart will explode. Impressive new Cascadia Baron wants 100 chicken wings. I want 100 boneless chicken wings. Because then I can just sit there and scarf them down in front of the television while watching TV.
because it is not fancy enough. Not
Like
only
a
that,
good
it
empress
decides to
enjoying her alone time.
these bananas for the crowds to compete with Antoine's, another world famous restaurant here
Oh?
in the quarter, who is famous for big.
She has the tone of someone who has very obviously said the same story almost every time she has to make bananas Foster.
Up with something special as well. We're going to let this pan get nice and hot, and then I am going to go ahead and flambe. It's going to get a bit high.
Okay.
Oh?
One,
Ooh.
2, 3.
There's your whiskey.
There we are.
Boneless wings equals chicken nuggets. They are chicken nuggets. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Boneless wings are chicken nuggets.
Okay.
Yes.
Although wasn't there? I forget. Wasn't there a case where it agreed that like eat chicken wings also don't even have to have chicken in them?
Popular that night at the Brennan's Foster party that people actually continue to come back into Brennan's and ask for the banana dessert served at that Foster party. People who weren't even invited to that party came in to ask for it.
Listen, a caramelized brown sugar banana with vanilla ice cream.
Their good friend.
What's not to love? I bet you better put that shit on top. You better pour that shit over the top. So help me God.
Creation of the dish.
Yes, tinged eyebrows. Yep. Yep.
And it's vanilla ice cream.
Listen,
right?
it's a very simple dessert. It's a classic simple dessert.
Vanilla ice cream.
And just awesome. It's on par with me with like hot brownies. Like a hot brownie and vanilla ice cream. What is there to not love?
Derek was telling me that bananas Foster's is your favorite dessert, Derek?
Hands down, favorite dessert.
Really?
The original.
This is
the
the
authentic.
real.
Oh, now I was to say, I mentioned the brownies and ice cream. I think I would like brownies and ice cream more, but I would kill to try
Amazing, and I love
bananas
how she
Foster.
told the entire story. It was so worth it. Let's try it.
I like bone slings. I don't like having to eat around bones. It's fine sometimes. Sometimes I actually have the urges. It's like, oh, I need something I want to work for, and it's like just gnaw on the whole wing. It's sometimes I get cravings for crab, like a whole crab. I like whole crab.
Oh, wow.
New Cascadia is the Dark Carnival. Is it now? You would have to eat more bananas than your stomach could fit in order to die from banana radiation? No, this isn't about banana radiation. It's about potassium. If I have too much potassium, I could have a fatal potassium spike and my heart will essentially stop.
I've had these before.
It's because some of the medicines that I take, it's one of the risks.
Like overpowering.
It causes massive fluctuations in body potassium. So if I eat too many bananas at once, that'll raise the average potassium level so that those spontaneous spikes would essentially damage and or stop my heart.
Contrast of the cold,
Yay,
frozen
depressing
ice cream
things.
to the warm,
But I'd have
melted
to
brown
eat
sugar
like
and butter and the half-cooked banana.
a whole banana.
Oh, it is
Either multiple
insanely good,
bananas
yeah.
in a day, multiple days in a row, or like a whole banana every single day for like multiple weeks. Make bone art out of your food and sell it for profit.
Food tour of the French Quarter.
I mean, have you seen the like people that like grind parts of bones to make art?
I haven't been pausing. It's just nonstop. I'm almost done.
I ain't waiting. That ice cream's melting.
That's pure joy.
I got a hot dessert in front of me, and it's melting my vanilla ice cream.
It's been it's been my favorite since.
Just holding the ice bucket with somebody's wine in it. Also, the empty table behind them with 3 fucking glasses that still have some kind of alcohol in them is bothering the shit out of me. Okay, that was about $11 per person. That's not the worst for a dessert.
Ultimate food tour of New Orleans, the French Quarter.
Hot single desserts in your area?
It's just been a fun day.
Eyebrows?
New Orleans
Eyebrows, eyebrows,
is so
eyebrows?
exciting. There's so much good food.
Do you prefer your bananas bone-in or boneless? No, I prefer it with the wrapper. I like my bananas with the wrapper on.
Strategic location, the friendly attitudes, the
If he gets any close to the camera, he's gonna headbutt the lens. Probably.
Positivity of New Orleans.
Fucking
and that was an
probably.
extremely fun day. I want to say a big thank you to you.
Does he wears a shirt that's, if it's not spicy, I'm not eating? Is he from, is that Thai? Anybody recognize that language? Mark Weens. Let's see real quick. He does do travel stuff. I was looking to see if he was talking about any local area, but no, it looks like he just kind of goes all over. Oh, I remember seeing this one cross my feed. The oldest restaurant in Paris. Very interesting. Very interesting. Whole thing is travel for food. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, that may be what would turn my thing into. We would do history stuff, we'd walk around, and then it would be like 20 minutes of, look at the food, chat! Look at the food! It looks so good. All right. Yeah, there's a lot of these food travel channels. I still have like a bunch of the conspiracy stuff, but I think we'll save it for a little bit later, maybe Tuesday. My beef with Google. Hilarious. Anyway, let me go ahead and get y'all the music. The whole thing is travel for food, horror, and hunger. Ooh. Oh, if we could double whammy horror and hunger into a stream, that would be awesome. Oh, also, apparently this... Well, damn. Oh, well. All right, let's see. Who's live? Okay, let me check. Oh, whoops. Because I didn't have any streams pre-open like I usually do. But... we're gonna raid Anna. We're gonna raid Anna Atrocious because tomorrow is Mage Day. We're gonna be playing Mage over at Hactics. If you haven't joined the Discord, I highly recommend doing so. Do we want to do a horror movie night tonight? We do still need to watch the original Annabelle for our chronological watching of not The Exorcism. The fuck, no, it wasn't The Exorcism. It's, why am I forgetting the series? The series that has the nun, it's good. I am there, in fact, but there are other people that are far better at role-playing than I am. Also, real quick, because you showed yourself, you fool. We're going to be over at Hectics. So if you haven't followed that channel, I highly recommend following it before we pop over to Anna's. That is pretty much it. So we're not going to be doing anything else probably the rest of the week. Because Sunday night, our vampire thing was already canceled. But that was pretty much it, I think, for the rest of the week. Other than that, guys, thank you for being here. Thank you for enjoying the show. And thank you for hanging out. I will see you tomorrow at Mage. If not, I will see you next Monday. Good night.